Announcements, we got, a public hearing is gonna be conducted on the charter review on Wednesday, September 5th, at 7 o'clock at the Uxbridge Town Hall, Lower Town Hall, meeting room. It's considered to propose changes to the town charter. The proposed changes may be reviewed at Town Hall during regular business hours. Anyone interested in wishing to discuss the matter should appear before the board at the above affirmation time and place. Bruce?
Sure. The People's First Food Pantry will be holding an annual Italian dinner Saturday, September 8th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Uxbridge VFW. For tickets and more information, contact the People's First Food Pantry at 508-278-5506. And my last announcement is I'd like to thank Wendy Washington for her email about a warrant article on Pout Pond. Just to let Wendy know, I'm in complete agreement with her. I don't think we should put Pout Pond on a warrant article. That's all I have.
All right. Anybody else?
Go ahead. Just a quick thank you for everyone who turned out yesterday for the Cultural Council event. The Blues Brothers, or cover band, briefcase full of blues, was down there. It's the first time I had a chance to see one of the shows. I guess they have there on a Sunday quite regularly down there. It's a nice setup, and it was a really good time. So thanks for everyone who supported the Cultural Council and the local vendors. I think the First Night Committee had a food stand, and we're selling different things to go towards the parade. And if you see it in the future, I'd definitely take in one of those shows. That's it.
I just want to thank everyone who has contributed a jar of peanut butter. Sean, you shouldn't have brought in 6, really. 1 was enough, but I do appreciate it very much. I thank everyone who contributed.
Okay. Citizens Forum, anybody for Citizens Forum? The sign-in date?
Hi, my name's Dave Lucon. Most of you people know me. I've been on the Conservation Commission for the last 6 years. I've also been overseeing Pout Pond for the last 6 years. I come to you as a citizen and someone who loves Pout Pond. There's been some talk about a proposed amendment for transferring control of Pout Pond from the Conservation Commission to the Board of Selectmen. There's a petition that's been circulating at Pout Pond that I'd like to present to the Board of Selectmen. It's to the Board of Selectmen. It reads, "We, the undersigned, do not support the proposed warrant that is being considered for the Uxbridge Fall Town Meeting to, quote, transfer care and control of Pout Pond or portions thereof from the Conservation Commission to the Board of Selectmen. We recognize and support that the governance of Pout Pond is in the control of the Uxbridge Conservation Commission and that Pout Pond is conservation land protected by Article 97 of the Massachusetts State Constitution. We are opposed to any change in control. We are adamant that the Uxbridge Board of Selectmen recognize our petition and vote no to this proposed warrant." And I have about 100 signatures on that petition. I want to say a few words, if I can, in regards to Article 97. This protects Pout Pond. I've been in touch with the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and they support and they enforce Article 97. So Pout Pond has rights. It has environmental rights, and it's owned by the people of Uxbridge. Now, there is talk about portioning off a section of Pout Pond. It is part of the Pout Pond property, which is 40 West River Road. It covers the entire parcel, and it abuts the Lake Farm Conservation Land. I'd like to read something that I received today from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And it goes, "The Conservation Commission is charged by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8C, with the oversight and protection of land within its community, and in particular, with the care, custody, and control of lands owned by it and protected by Article 97 of the amendments to the Massachusetts Constitution. Article 97 provides constitutional rights of its citizens to protect and enjoyment of natural resources. This land contains sensitive environmental assets of state and possibly federal concern, and it is appropriate that the land remain dedicated for conservation under the Conservation Commission, which is charged with protecting environmental assets. If for some reason any change of control, it has to come from the Conservation Commission, then to the town meeting, 2/3 majority vote, then to the state legislature, and then off to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Here's the problem. Let's say it gets that far. We're going to be asked to present an alternatives plan and then mitigate it. Where are we going to put Pout Pond? That's a concern, or even a portion of it. That is where the concern will be. Great question. What would be the point of changing the use or control if taxpayers would then have to find another piece of land equal or better economically and environmentally to replace Pout Pond? It's not worth it. So there's a number of us here tonight, just want to present our concern about anything to do with taking the control out of Pout Pond from conservation to the Board of Selectmen. One last question, who would be in control? It takes a lot of people to run Pout Pond. So I'd like to leave that question with the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to respond to some of those things, Peter.
Go ahead, Dave.
I received 2 or 3 emails asking to please vote against selling Pout Pond. There's no talk about selling Pout Pond. If anyone has any question, that should answer it. No one's going to sell Pout Pond. Pout Pond is not deeded conservation land. So there is a distinction there. The land is under the control and custody of the Conservation Commission, put there by town meeting. And town meeting, what putteth by town meeting can unputteth. I'm not recommending that. I'm not suggesting that. However, keep in mind that under the conservation, true conservation and restricted land, such as the turtle land by the high school, you can't do anything with it. You can't even walk on it. That's not the case with the Pout Pond land. It is, you can use it for passive recreation. Now, I don't know if swimming constitutes passive recreation, but I know that playing baseball does not constitute passive recreation. But we have baseball fields there, and it's perfectly proper to have them there. And people use it all the time, the people of Uxbridge who paid for that land. So I think we're getting a little bit carried away. No one is talking about, and I don't know where that article came from, no one is talking about selling Pout Pond. No one is talking about taking control from the Conservation Commission. I applaud the efforts made in recent years to have that back in, better use than it has been for a long time. However, the current issue is the town owns a little house, a little cabin, on the other side of Pout Pond. It really has no connection with Pout Pond.
It's got every connection with Pout Pond.
Bruce.
As you know, for years, that house was rented for $75 a month, which even at that time was grossly illegal because under the laws, if we rent property, it has to be for fair market value. So rather than have that property deteriorate, I understand the Conservation Commission was looking into refurbishing it and renting it on its own accord. So apparently you didn't think that that would be inconsistent with the conservation uses, and I agree with that. So there's been much to do really about nothing. My aim is to make sure that the Board of Selectmen take care of town property, and leaving a valuable asset, which is a house with a lake, next to a lake, sit there rotting year after year after year, in my view, is unconscionable, and we need to put a stop to that.
Peter, what's the reason behind it? You got the guy kicked out last time.
I didn't get the guy kicked out.
You did.
No. Let me set the record straight, and the record is about 4 inches thick. Anytime you want to read it, I'll let you read it. The town was renting that for $75 a month. That, Bruce, is a violation of state law, and if you have any question about that, I'll give you all the documents. When we rent something, we have to ascertain from competent sources fair market value. At that time, fair market value, we had 2 appraisers look at it, and they both said between $425 and $450 a month.
What's wrong with doing it now?
All right, let's.
There's nothing wrong with
Let's
it.
have
Oh,
a lot
it can't
here.
be
We're gonna,
$450.
we're gonna talk about this on the warrant.
All right.
This is citizens forum. Anybody else for citizens forum? Harry?
My name is Harry Ramasco, 19 Fish Street. I want to comment on 2 quick issues. One, I want to encourage, and I applaud the selectmen for setting the hearing for the charter review for September 5th. I want to encourage the community to come to that hearing. We've heard an awful lot about what the charter ought to be and what it ought not to be. I encourage all to come out and help us, to help you, to develop a more perfect charter that can benefit this community and for the next 10 years serve us the way it was intended to. So I would ask all, it's going to be in the lower town hall. The time is 7 o'clock, and I'd ask all to come out, including this board, who has to work with this charter on a daily basis. Second of all, I want to comment on the Pout Pond. I think I can intimately comment on that. I'm going to go way back into the early 70s, when I was in charge of the waterfront under Charlie Smith, hiring the lifeguards, promoting the water safety program, incorporating it with the Red Cross and the Boy Scouts with their mile swim program. It was a tremendous success. I would encourage all, and I watched the last Conservation Committee meeting, I would encourage all to ask that the Recreation Committee and the Conservation Commission work collaboratively in the mutual benefit of what this great asset of ours can be to our community. I will comment, too, on that summer house, because I think I can intimately comment on that as well. I knew the individual that rented that. I knew the history behind it, how it got there, why it went there, and what purposes served while it was there. The fact of the matter is that the person that was there actually watched over Pout Pond while he was there. We did get value for that $75 a month. However, I understand Mass General Law and the purpose of it and the rationale behind it. My understanding is the Conservation Committee, or Commission, has in fact spent quite a bit of time and resource in renovating that and hopefully renting that for a fair rent, which will benefit the entire Pout Pond. I would encourage all that have an affinity towards Pout Pond, and those that haven't, to get down there and see that valuable resource we have, to get behind it. It is a tremendous benefit to the community. Nothing pleases me any more than when I have children come up to me and say, you know, my mom and dad learned how to swim there, and you and your wife taught them how to swim. I know Shirley Silbo was here tonight, and Shirley was before me. And I got to tell you, it pleases me when adults come up to me and say, you know, what you taught me down there helped somebody, saved somebody. And I say, boy, that's great. And that's what hasn't been happening down there. I applaud those that continue to go down there and do their job. I encourage others that haven't been down there to get involved. And I thank all those that continue to stay involved. Whether or not there's an article coming or there isn't, I can't say I have enough knowledge on that, but I would say to all, please, and including this board, to encourage the Recreation Committee and the Conservation Commission to work collaboratively together. And I'd encourage all the citizens in this town to get into town meeting, and whether it means encouraging them to make whatever suggestions they can for the budget, please provide some monies to provide the necessary recreation that that Pout Pond can provide to us. I think it's money well spent. I think it's families that are going to enjoy it and pass on those good memories. And I thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Terry, before you go, I can't make the public hearing, as you know. And
Okay.
I'm preparing a written response. But it would be very helpful to people if the committee could give specific reasons justifying the proposed changes. Because people I look at some of these things and I ask myself, gee, I wonder where this came from. What are they trying to do? You know, what's the benefit over what we have?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be, as you know, a cost associated with changing the charter. In order to justify that cost, we have to say, you know, yeah, gee, these are some changes that are okay, but if the cost is this much to implement them, is it worth it?
Well, there's always a cost for everything. It's either cost or an opportunity cost loss for doing, as you know. And that's the purpose of Mass General Law, to have a public hearing. It's not for us to articulate unless the public.
That part I understand.
Right. I want the public to come forth and ask us, why are you recommending this? I speak for, as one member of an 8-member committee. And I must add, and I said it before, a most terrific committee that had a depth of knowledge across this entire community. Do I agree with everything that we voted on? There are some things I still have some questions on. However, the committee voted accordingly. What I'm suggesting is that folks come out to the public hearing. If in fact, for some reason, they haven't heard enough, or when they receive the information here and the recommendations we make, there will be another opportunity at town meeting in the fall for them to come forward and ask those questions. Why? I will make a series of articles, whether it's 1 article, 2, 3, 4, or 5 articles that will be presented for your warrant by September 21st. So
So
hopefully.
you're looking to have town meeting, this fall town meeting,
Correct.
vote on this?
That's correct. That's our timeline. That's the proposed timeline, and I must add, and I want to say this with openness. I've had numerous discussions with the town manager, numerous discussions with the town clerk, and joint discussions with the town clerk, town manager, and myself, acknowledging where the committee wants to go. And in addition, the Attorney General's office, who has looked at and verified, in fact, are we doing statutorily what is the correct thing? And every step along the way, in concurrence, and I would go to the town manager just to verify this. Everything we have done, including his involvement, Kelly's involvement, Tracy's involvement, has been consistent with Mass General Law, Charter.
I'm not suggesting otherwise, Harry.
Well-
I'm just looking at the fall town meeting warrant and the things we're gonna have on it, and asking myself, in my own mind, is it going to get proper consideration? Or are we gonna look at a warrant this thick with all these articles?
Yep.
And we're either gonna vote yes to get it over with, or vote no to get it over with, without really giving it the consideration that it needs. And I still think it would be helpful to people, when they go to the town, your public hearing, if they look at the proposed change, and something is right there to tell them, this is why we're suggesting this change.
Can we get that online,
Can get what online?
those changes in the article?
Oh,
Yeah, that's online.
Proposed
That's online. You can get that online.
But not an
Yeah.
explanation of it.
Right,
And
right.
an explanation, we get the explanation.
You'd have to come to the hearing,
When-
September 5th. September 5th, 7 o'clock, Lower Town Hall. And Pete, I don't disagree, but you gotta realize that we've been at this for about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And we've had some 16, 17 meetings.
18.
18, okay? The participation has been less than expected. And I want to say this, that if we've had meetings, 17, 18 meetings, and invited the public in every single meeting with a citizens forum, encourage them to send us emails, set up a dedicated website to do that, that has not happened.
Yeah.
So the probability to me says,
Yeah.
maybe the fact is that either they don't care or they're too confused, and something in between is happening, and I'm not sure what that is. So as the chairman,
There were 18 meetings that I counted.
Yeah.
But one doesn't count, even though there was a meeting, it wasn't a quorum, but that's okay.
right,
Of the 7 members,
Mm-hmm.
2 members missed 10 meetings
right,
of the 18.
Mm-hmm.
2 members missed 8 meetings.
right,
I think 3 missed 6. 2 missed just 2,
Mm-hmm.
you being one of them. And that, by the way, mirrors pretty close what happened to the first charter commission that I was on. You know, that one, people had to run for the office. It was an elected position.
that's right.
And still, we had, you know, no shows, no shows, no shows, no quorum, cancel the meeting, and
Yep.
so forth. So it's a problem. I understand the problem. And as far as I know, there's no way to really fix the problem. But,
We're not gonna fix it here tonight.
no, we're not gonna fix it.
Why not? And I just laid out a process, we adhered to the process. I'm one that says, you know, the majority rules, the committee was made up of 8 members. If we had 5 at a committee meeting, then we conducted business.
Yeah.
We Skyped in 2 from Florida, as I previously had indicated at another meeting. I reached out as far as I could in every possibility to use every form of media to get everyone involved, including the town manager's office, the Secretary of State's office, the AG's office, the local town clerk's office. There's nothing more that we could have done to create an awareness factor. I don't know what more we could have done.
All right,
So, that's it.
thanks, Harry.
All right, I'm new here.
Excuse me.
Can I just ask a question?
Okay, go ahead, one.
It's gonna be really early. I was at Cow Pond, the Water Hole Church was there yesterday, and it says, don't sell Cow Pond. I wanna know if it's up for sale. And
Well-
if you're getting rid of it.
Let me, everyone's probably here for Ball Pond. Look, these warrant articles were put on because we discussed them during the past couple of months. These are not on the warrant. We're gonna discuss these tonight. Now, we don't have signs up at Ball Pond for sale. You know, I don't know who's telling you we're selling it.
Well, no one here has talked about it,
No.
selling it. No one.
This article's here because we discussed it.
What?
Jeez.
No. Well, you go back to the person who told you that and invite them and me and have them repeat that. Because no one has talked about that.
Right.
Man,
If
shut it.
a year later, if they're building condos up, I wouldn't be surprised, right?
All right. Hurley, do you have a point before you?
I just want it on record.
That's all right.
Hurley Silber, 133 Hazel Street. I hope you'll allow me a few minutes tonight to insert not just Pout Pond, but what I consider related issues, and that has to do with the resources in this town that we use for recreation and so on. Because I'm finding that more often now, I'm finding out about things after the fact, and after things have occurred, and it's infringing more and more upon the kinds of things that we have enjoyed in this community our whole life. I'm an avid hunter and fisherman, as some of these people here are, and in my early days as a boy, I was running down from Rock Meadow Road through the woods down to the back part of the West River to do my fishing. That's where I learned how to fish, later to hunt, and so on, enjoying the outside. And in this day and age, when we're so concerned about youngsters sitting in front of computers and not getting outside Why are they not getting outside? Because there are fewer places for them to go out and enjoy the areas that we once had. I know a few years back, I went up to 100 acres to do some hunting. Now, they put some soccer fields in there, and I'm not speaking against soccer. All my grandchildren play soccer. But I went up there to do some hunting, and all of a sudden there's a chain across the way where we couldn't go in and park any longer. I don't know who decided that, how it came about. And of course, the story is you're always trying to protect something because someone's doing damage. And one thing that really bothers me in this day and age is because if one person commits a criminal act, everyone else is treated like a criminal automatically. You fall under the same guideline, and that really bothers me. I go into a gas station, pay for your gas before you get it, and that approach to things. But anyway, a few people made some comments, and finally the chain went down. And did they protect it another way? Yes, they put some logs along the soccer field, and I go through there frequently. I don't think I've ever seen a piece of damage done to that field from that time to this. So now we can drive in there. Not only can I drive in there to hunt, but now you've opened up. You've got vegetable fields up there and so on for so many people in your community to enjoy. I beg your pardon? Well, now you do. Same thing, we used to go down the West River, and I could fish that river with fish that we put in with our license money and so on. And then the Corps of Engineers took over. The first thing I noticed is one old fellow who couldn't get down to the river any other way but in his car. He was such serious condition physically that it's the only way he could fish that river. So the Corps of Engineers came in, and because they found a few pieces of trash someplace, and I don't know why their workers can't pick up trash, but they started gating everything off. That man could no longer fish that area. I go down there, I used to go down to that swimming pool area in the evening, not during the afternoon when people were busy swimming down there and they're charging prices, but I'd go down there late in the evening to do some fishing like I've done my whole life. And now I've got to pay a fee every evening I go in order to fish that area. Another thing taken away. Now, the Powell Pond area, Harry's right. I go back to the 50s, back when the Rotary Club ran it, and Mike Hessian was before me, and I volunteered under Mike Hessian, and then later ran it myself. And for people who are not aware of it, if you'd go down to Powell Pond on a Saturday or a Sunday, that place was loaded with cars. Massachusetts, Rhode Island, I mean, up onto the Bankins and so on. You wouldn't believe how popular a spot that was. And I can't tell you how many people in the community I had the pleasure of teaching how to swim through those years that took place. And so I was happy now to see that somebody volunteered some money this year so that kind of a program could continue. So my concern is that not just whether we sell a piece of a recreational area, I hope that never happens, but that we then come in with too many, we micromanage and we come in with too many restrictions. I heard I just happened to bump into the Conservation Committee meeting the other night, and someone was complaining because during the ice fishing, somebody had a fire on the pond, and after they left, it came up again. So what? It would just burn out on the ice. It would never be a threat. I fished every pond in this county almost. I have never seen a fire on the ice pose any kind of a problem. What's my concern about that is now all of a sudden we come up with rules why, well, we better open at a certain time and close at a certain time. Sometimes to a hunter or a fisherman, the best time is into dark. And if you start putting in rules and regulations where you can't go in certain times of the day, you have now taken that away from other people who have other interests in regard to that property. So anyway, I don't want to take too much time, but I just wish the Selectmen and the Conservation Committee and anyone else would take these things into consideration and try and keep them open as much as possible to as many people as possible, especially young people. I was down to Powell Pond, and when they made reference to that fire on the ice the other night, they said, well, we've had a couple of burnings there. Well, I saw one of them. I was down there scouting, just happened to go in scouting for some turkeys around that same time. I saw where the fire was. Somebody dropped a match or a cigarette, and it burned right. The fire company came down. In 5 minutes, they had it out. It wasn't a big deal. It's not like it's happening every day. But what pleased me was, right where that happened, there were 3 or 4 kids there fishing, having the time of their life, young kids. So I'd hate to say those kids can't go in there and do that any longer because we're concerned that all of a sudden we might have a little brush fire. So anyway, if you just keep those things in mind in relation to our facilities, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Are you allowed to speak out of turn, or I don't know?
You have to sign in.
You have to sign
If you're gonna speak,
Where do you sign?
Right here.
Stand up
Up
to the
here.
podium and sign it.
I'm gonna do it next week, but I have issues.
all right, so you're all set.
I believe I am, I believe I am.
Thank you.
I just wanna know, see, I lived here for 10 years already. I never even knew we had vegetable gardens or fishing places or
We
anything.
didn't have it until this year.
This year.
Vegetable garden is new.
I never knew there was hunting areas, I never knew any of this. It's so well kept secrets.
You gotta come down more often.
All right, moving on.
Down here more often. It's every other month.
I think on that. This
Sure.
will be an issue if you're gonna get rid of that. You're gonna be on that list.
My name's Dan Doherty, live up on Douglas Street. I've been here for about 3 years now, and I have 4 young kids, and we use Pow Pond quite a bit. And just a thought, you guys are the Board of Selectmen, I'm sure you have enough things to do. I believe the Conservation Committee is doing an excellent job with it. And if they partner up with the Recreation Committee, that would give you guys more time to do, the tasks that are already at hand for you. And as far as the cottage goes, I mean, no one had touched it for years, from what I understand. Now that it's a viable commodity again, I see people trying to grab in on it. I think you maybe should just leave those matters to the people that are already involved. But the place is beautiful the way it is, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're all set? Let's move on to old business, Bruce High School project.
Okay, the high school will open on Wednesday to all students from grade 9 to 12. The high school is finished. There's punch list items that still have to be corrected. I do have the resolution log with me, and I'll leave it with the chairman. He can put it in the reading file or do what he wants with it. The commissioning resolution file, the commissioning will still, there's still a little commissioning to come for the fall when the winter starts up, but that is the resolution log the way it is as of August 21st. And the fields are being worked on. We expect the football field to be done around November 20th, and the 6 tennis courts in October. And the track around the field has already been asphalted. Now they have to wait a while until they put the actual track down. But basically, it's ready to go, and punch list is still being worked on. That's all I have.
Thank you. Before we go to this fall town meeting, do you mind if we take the Eagle Scout project?
Oh, sure.
Jonathan, Robert?
Hi, how are you? Happy to meet you.
Jim Rice.
Jay Cahill.
Pete, hello?
Bruce Teslitz.
That's the
We met
boss.
before, how are you, Sean?
Which one, the left one? On the left or the right?
Yes.
We give all those sheets to the FCIA, don't we? To keep track of.
All right, so I believe that I gave you all sheets at some point. Sheets that listed essentially what I have for the project, along with pictures of exactly where those things would be. I'm not sure if you have them at this moment, but I'll just basically summarize what I'm doing in case you're unaware. So my plan was, I'd been working closely with the Pomeroy family who operates the Angel of Hope Park on East Hartford Ave. And as you probably know, it's a memorial to children who have died, and so I feel like it would be a worthy place to do an Eagle Scout project. So what my project was going to entail was, at the beginning of the park, there's a chain that's kind of rusty and old, so I was going to repaint the chain, and along with repainting it, I'd install some type of hanging welcome sign that pretty much says, "Come in, we're open," because they would like the chain to be there, but it seems to deter people who may come in and then they think that it's closed because there's a chain off it, so people won't come in. So if there's a welcome sign, it would let more people go in. And also, a lot of people frequently walk through there with their dogs and other various animals. So an important part of the project would be to put in a dog bag dispenser, like the ones you see outside PetSmart, with little plastic bags, and there's already an existing trash can there, so pretty much they could just pick a bag out and pick up after their dog and keep the area clean and healthy for everybody else who's gonna walk through there. I was gonna place some type of mailbox over to the side, to the right side near the path, going over towards the pond. And that would contain informational flyers, because a lot of people who pass through there are looking for more information to the park as to like see what times they're open and events that may be held there and other information. So I feel like that would help the people who walk through the park to get more information. And also, towards the center of the memorial, there's an old tree. And overall, it's a fairly nice looking tree, but there's a lot of old dead branches, which one, are fairly unsightly, and two, could pose a threat if one of them ever decided to fall down, because they're fairly large and not very stable. So our idea was we were gonna get like a large pole saw, and we could probably cut down all those branches pretty safely. And probably the main part of the project was to install a fence around halfway around the perimeter of the basic circle, which was the driveway of the mansion. So what we would do was we would start, if you're walking in to the park, we would start on the left side. We would continue around to approximately the middle and stop where a big tree is. And I don't know if you can see this. This is an extremely crude drawing of what I was planning to do. With the chain, the walkway, the dog bag dispenser would be somewhere along on that side, and somewhere over there would be the mailbox of flyers. The fence would be a split rail wooden fence, so it would maintain the rustic look of the park. That would continue along, starting at the circle near the path and going up to the middle. And the trees located away from the center of the circle, so then we could just trim up the branches on that. And I looked over the email sent from the DPW, and it seems like they're on board with the project. I have the sheet of signatures with all the approval of my scout leaders, the Pomeroys themselves, along with the district council leader. And here's some pictures in case you haven't already seen them. That's essentially what the fence will look like. So it'll blend in. There you can see the trash can, and around in that area near that box will be where the dog bag dispenser is. There is the entrance with the chain, and that would simply be repainted and have a sign hung from it. And so pretty much I have a date planned out. September 15th would be when I start. And I'm not sure if it would be a day project or multiple day project, but I feel like we're pretty much going to have my entire Boy Scout troop, or as much of them as can attend, help out with it. So it will most likely only take a day, or if necessary, 2 days. So it would be from the 15th to the 16th. And so if you could please approve this project, I would be very grateful, and I'm sure the members of the community who enjoy the park would be grateful as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robert.
Jonathan, quick question. Moving forward, who's gonna ultimately be responsible for the refilling of the boxes and the doggy bags and things like that? Is that something that the troop takes on? Or the town?
I would not object to doing that if I had to. I believe the Pomeroys said that they would be able to keep up with the park, but they can't attend right now, so I'll be in communication with them. But if I had to, I believe that I would be able to do that, me or other members of the troop.
There might be difficulty putting in your fence posts on the side of the road, because I think at one time that was paved, and some paving may still be underlying the topsoil. So you might not make your 2-day. It might be a little bit more work than you think, digging the.
Yeah, I
I hope
discussed
not.
it with them. I looked it over, and I hadn't thought about that, no one had mentioned that to me, but it seemed like pretty much all I would have to do was bring in a post hole digger, dig a hole, and then put the fence post in, cover it up with dirt, and then continue that for however many fence posts I would need. So I'm not sure exactly how thick the ground is or how difficult that would be, but you bring up a good point.
Bring cement.
Yeah, I did talk to a fence company. They said that cement wouldn't be necessary because that would kind of seal in moisture into the wood and that would cause it to rot quicker. So it would be better to dig a hole and just compact dirt nicely and keep the fence up that way.
I move that the board approve the Eagle Scout project at the Angel of Hope, subject to the comments and suggestions and emails from the DPW Director, Ben Sherman, dated 8/23/2012.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Okay.
Okay. Now we'll go back to the fall town meeting warrant.
Peter, can I make a motion to enter the minutes of that resolution into the minutes of this meeting? Or you wanna wait till later? No, the resolution that you got from the school, that'd be entered in the minutes of this meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
All right,
Do
you're
it
going
all
through
later.
it anyways, all right.
when we do our minutes, we can do it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are we going over the proposed warrants, or are we gonna go over the ones that are not actually on the warrant
Yeah,
yet?
they're in order. Articles, in your packets, you'll have the warrant articles for the fall town meeting. Articles 1 through 13 are, it says, correct,
Thank you.
are placeholders, and tonight we're asking the board to look at these and vote the inclusion of the warrant. After the following 13, there are 4 articles that the board may or may want to consider, and that was discussion over the past year or so.
Okay.
I don't think we need to vote on an article for reports, because there's no action to be taken on a report. The moderator just calls for reports, and the report is read by somebody. I don't think, it won't hurt anything to do it, but I don't think it's necessary.
I think the first few are, okay, no, let's just start from the top.
Okay.
We'll
I
just go
move
right
that
through.
the board include Article 1 reports in the fall town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Second,
Second.
motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Article 2, transfer of expended encumbered fund balance to cable peg access accounts.
I move that the board include Article 2, transfer of unexpended, unencumbered fund balance to the cable peg access account in the fall town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
What unexpended, unencumbered fund balance are we talking about?
I'm not sure what the amount is, but there's just the sum of money there that hasn't yet been actually encumbered by the cable committee, so it's just gonna go into its account. It's a standard article that has been done.
I second it.
Motion made and
But
seconded.
it doesn't say what fund is unexpended and unencumbered.
We won't know exactly what the amount is until,
No, I know you don't know the amount, but it doesn't even identify the fund from which we're going to take the money.
It's a transfer from the unexpended, unencumbered fund
Fund
balance
balance.
to the
But
cable
what,
peg access
what
account.
fund?
that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
No, unexpended and unencumbered funds can relate to any fund balance. But we have to tell people what fund this money is currently in, right?
Yes, and when you get your detailed warrant tonight, it's just about the inclusion, when you get more detailed down the road, we'll have a dollar figure in the fund for the board. But these are just the placeholder articles, we're voting the inclusion tonight.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Article 3, transfer to stabilization.
I move that the board include Article 3, transfer of stabilization in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Article 4, prior year bills.
I move that the board include Article 4, prior year bills in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Second.
At this time, do we know of any?
I believe there are none.
None.
Okay.
Motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Article 5. Departmental transfers.
I move that the board include Article 5, FY13 departmental transfers in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Peter?
We're voting
You
a
gotta have
warrant
the numbers.
article. We have,
The unexpended unencumbered fund is just
I know, the general
monies
fund.
from, right.
that's correct.
So we don't know exactly right now where that money is going to ultimately come from. The starting account is
Yeah.
going to be, and again, that's why we can't provide that detail now until town, there's no way to do it, because when the town actually votes upon it, it needs to be a current amount. So we're not gonna, because we've got 3 months of business or 2.5 months of business between now and town meeting.
That's a reason not to have to do the warrant article 60 days before the town meeting.
I agree.
It just doesn't make any sense.
So is that a yea or a nay?
Did you call for a vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Article 6. FY13 budget amendments.
I move that the board include Article, it says Article 5 here, it's Article
Oh,
6.
sorry, thank you, yeah.
Article 6, FY13 budget amendments in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
And at this time, we don't even know what the reduction's going to be.
This is just to get the article there, Peter.
Just replacement.
Numbers
to
were filled in
the
before we-
warrant.
I
Because of
know.
Go to
timelines,
FinCom.
It's,
We have to take
can't
care of it every
I
night.
don't run my
I
operations
understand.
this way.
Article 7, funding appropriation.
You don't
for-
have to ask 13,500
Yeah.
people for permission to do what you want to do with your money
I know.
either, so.
For purchase of cable peg access equipment.
I move that the board include Article 7, funding appropriation for purchase of cable peg access equipment in the fall annual town meeting, warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Seconded.
It's been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 8, establish community garden committee.
I move that the board include Article 8, establish community garden in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Discussion.
Discussion.
I can't vote for to put this on the warrant. There's no reason to have that as a town committee. The manager says that, well, they want it so they can have a revolving fund. That's not a sufficient reason. There are lots of organizations that take in money, make expenditures, and do things for the town, in town. The First Night Committee, the Lions Club, the Women's Club, there's a whole host of them that operate. Everything that the town government does costs money. This is another fund that the treasurer collector has to keep track of. The accountant has to look over the receipt and expenditure of funds, and the auditors have to audit. For what earthly reason? If the Women's Club want to be a town agency, and they can be on the town website, and do we let them do it? The Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, Where does it end? Give me a logical reason why this should be a town agency. And I think the garden's a wonderful thing. I've been there half a dozen times. It's great. And the biggest benefit is that people who haven't gardened for a long time can be next to people who, they, gee, boy, I like those plants. How do you do it? You know, it's very good. I like to see the land used. But having it a town agency simply doesn't provide a benefit to anyone, and it's just one more thing that we have to take care of.
I can't speak for other groups who have not petitioned the board to become a town, who haven't petitioned to achieve this particular status. This particular group did. So, in line with that request, I send it to this board. Also, as we know, the gardens are on town land, which was,
The
which the
Angel of
board,
Hope is on town land. Should they raise money and they expend it?
that would be a question the board would entertain if Angel of Hope should come to the board and ask for this particular status.
Exactly.
That's all, I can only speak
But
about
my
this
job is to
particular board.
think of these things in advance and say, okay, what are the ramifications of this decision? And is it something that we should do? And I thought about this 100 ways, and I can't think of any reason that we should do it. Nothing against the garden people, good luck.
As I say, we are, just to finish, we are on town land, we've got at least 60 town residents who are taking advantage of this opportunity. So we do have, you know, a lot of
And there are more than 100 Uxbridge residents that have markers at the Angel of Hope. There are hundreds of residents that take part in these various activities. The Women's Club is active, the First Night Committee, the food pantry. You know, all these things are community organizations that benefit people, but they're not part of the government of the town. And the government doesn't have to take any responsibility or incur extra work. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a burden for the people involved, because they have to meet all the rules and regulations of government operations, as you know. We don't have to ask 1,000 people to do something, as government agencies have to do.
So they haven't submitted a private signatory list to get it sponsored on there? They're just asking the board to do it, correct?
That's correct.
And what is this organization? Do they have, are people voted in on it? Do they have articles of membership? I mean, how does it work?
Yes, if you went on the community gardens, they have their own independent website. There are rules of the road, there is a charter, there is a mission statement.
Okay.
Their board, if you will, are elected by the members, appointed by me.
Oh, you appoint
I
them?
would be the appointing authority.
That's another reason for me not to want to go down that road. I don't want us to be involved. We have plenty of work to do that we're not doing. And to get involved in something like that, you're gonna be the intermediary if different groups have arguments about different things. I don't know why you'd wanna take that on.
We've taken on some of that responsibility already simply because it's on town land.
No, we haven't taken any of that responsibility. We gave the group a license to use the land, and that's the end of it.
And the group uses the land, that group improves the land, the group farms the land, gives
Sure.
many, gives a certain portion of the harvest from that land back to other residents
All
in
those
the
are
town.
wonderful things.
You're asking me for reasons, I'm giving you to
Yeah,
them,
but
none of them are
those
appealing to
those
you,
are
but I'm
good
giving you the reasons you're
reasons,
asking for.
Sean, to have the gardens. None of those things require government involvement. My issue is not with the organization or what they do or the individuals involved. I'm looking at it strictly from the standpoint of, should the government get involved? And I can't think of a single reason for the government to get involved.
Is this, do you need this to do what they wanna do with the revolving fund? Yes.
A revolving fund is a state thing. There are plenty of organizations.
Articles tied into this.
Yes, but all organizations have so-called revolving funds. They take in money and they spend money. And if they spend more than they take in, they have to go to the members and say, hey, listen, will you pony up some money? You know, they do though. Every organization does those things.
Ultimately, the group sought this status. I personally support it. I was willing to take on the additional burden. Mr. Bagdasarian and I don't agree on that, but those points that he made as far as, you know, the workload or whatever that
What's the
occurs.
charter change too?
The town, I'm sorry?
You didn't change the charter for this. Appointees, 3 years, 5 years, it's gotta go in,
Yeah.
or the committee.
So it's not gonna bring up September 5th.
I don't think, I agree with Peter. It seems like a lot of, I don't know why you'd want to get encumbered by government in this and not just go your own private route. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And, you know, I'm a proponent of the garden as well. And what they do, I think we'd be doing a disservice by awarding them this.
And again,
involvement
you're
in
not
committee status.
awarding, you're allowing the town to
Well, to vote
make the
on it.
decision to award this, so.
Correct, but, you know, with that in mind, I would be more comfortable seeing the town come forth and have petition it from the citizens and get the article on there through grassroots efforts instead of going through the board. If they feel strongly about it. Because it is, for every argument that Peter's made, I think he's
And
spot on.
what reason do we give to every other organization that would want similar treatment?
I haven't encountered that.
Well, I know that. We haven't encountered this until
You're
we
worried about the
encountered it.
slippery slope?
Well, I don't know about slopes, but, you know, the question, I want to think of things in advance. That's what I do. I think about tomorrow. I don't think about yesterday, although I read yesterday. But it's something that I want to consider. What are the ramifications? If 10 organizations come and say, gee, you know, we think that's a good deal. We get on the town's website. We don't have to pay for our own website. We can do this. We have a revolving fund and so on and so forth. And, you know, what are we going to say? See, those are the things I think about.
I mean, they can still have a revolving fund, correct?
Not under the,
Not a
not the
gov-
town,
not a-
no.
It's not a government one, but they
Yeah,
can.
of course they can.
I don't understand why they wanna go through our procurement laws and have to deal with.
I don't
And
either.
I've heard, you know, people trying to buy anything around here.
Well, because you're
Then they have
talking
to
a small
reimburse
amount of money, because nothing they're ever gonna need is gonna cost enough, where they're gonna have to go through all that.
Fence gets ripped down. I don't know, like I said, it has nothing to do with the group and what they're doing, because what they're doing is excellent. It's just, I don't know that I would support putting that overhead. Another additional thing that we would have to provide, which I don't think will have an overall advantage for them as a group, the way I see it.
We have to audit the books. After all, it's a town agency. We have to, you know, make sure the accounts are kept, so on and so forth. The treasurer has to go through it, the accountant has to go through it, and the auditors are gonna go through it.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Call for the vote.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
You can pass over the next one.
Article 10, revolving fund account, first aid CPR training.
I move that the board include Article 10, revolving fund account for the first aid / CPI training in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
It's my understanding, tell me if I'm wrong, that we provide training for this EMT or whatever it is, CPR, to persons other than just the fire department, and that's what
Fire
it says.
department is conducting CPR classes for the
Or
public.
other, okay,
Correct.
okay,
So this is for the public.
$55 charge
yeah.
for the full
How much?
full boat. 55.
Yeah,
Most of that, it covers the cost directly. There is a $5 to $7 extra in that fee, but that's to purchase the mannequins and the defibrillators that were initially purchased by the Firefighters Association. So there is some turnover of equipment.
When is that offered, Sean?
Sorry?
When is it offered?
I believe they're starting it up this fall.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 11, borrowing authorization ambulance chassis.
I move that the board include Article 11, borrowing authorization, ambulance chassis, in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Does anybody know anything what happened to this ambulance?
Well, prior to the previous two ambulances, they were on a 4-year cycle. So each ambulance would last 4 years, they would replace every two years. The last two that were bought were heavier duty models, so now they're on a 6-year lifespan, replacement every 3 years. This particular chassis that they're looking to, and the chassis includes the engine, by the way, it's just everything on the ambulance except the box. We ended up going to heavier duty boxes because with our advanced life-saving capabilities that the department has now, ended up putting more equipment. This particular ambulance was purchased it was a 2007 chassis, so it's on its 6 years. So it is having some mechanical issues as well, some engine issues. They're concerned about a lack of loss of power. It's got about 70,000 miles on it. So the chassis itself is around $77,000 to $80,000, and so that additional 22 is gonna go to upgrades for the engine, as well as one of the things that they're doing with the they're going to make some updates to the box as well, including normal replacement of air conditioning units and filters and that kind of thing. So
And this is supposed to be no good in 1 year. It's in its 5th year, and you're saying they're changing
it's a
them every
2007 chassis, which means I believe it was purchased in 2006, so it's in its 6th year of life. So it's on the normal replacement schedule.
So why are we going through this if we're gonna replace it?
No, he's talking about the replacement.
The existing
This is the
vehicle.
replacement.
Are you just gonna maintain
Gonna
the
take the box
parts?
off, take the chassis out, right? Trade that in or whatever, and then get a new chassis and put the box back on.
So this should be good until,
For another six years.
Another 6
3
years.
years from now, the other ambulance, A1, will be up in front of you.
I used to faint when we used to buy ambulances for $40,000.
bargain, huh?
Yeah.
The motion been made, I'll second it. Did I
Motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 12, borrowing authorization, water main design and construction.
I move that the board include Article 12, borrowing authorization, water main design and construction, in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
second it?
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? I have a question. I don't know what has been. Yeah, I have a question for you, Ben. What is the borrowing from the Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust?
That is basically well, I'll start from the very beginning. The Route 122 road reconstruction project. That, as you know, has been in the works for quite some time. We are still progressing, albeit rather slowly, with DOT for the road reconstruction. The article that's up for consideration is for replacement of the water mains along North and South Main Street. It's something I feel strongly needs to be done prior to the $8-9 million road project. The majority of that main, if not all of it, is in the range of 100 years old, prone to leaks and breakage. The reason why it came back up, I want to say, well, at least since I've been here, and I think a couple years before that, they've applied for SRF funding for that work. Every year since, we continue to submit our applications. However, we have been ranked well below the intended use plan limits. Approximately about a month ago, I was actually approached by Jack Ham at DEP SRF, and he informed me that quite a few people have dropped off the list, and we were elevated to the list. Again, however, there's no way we would be able to get the ball in motion by their October 15th deadline to be eligible for that funding opportunity now. So this is intended, hopefully, for the, for the next year, the FY14 intended use plan. The requirements are that you have some authorization, like a borrowing authorization, and have the design portion ready to go. So since we are not eligible, or not eligible, since we are not ready, because we don't have any of the prior authorizations in place and the design ready to go, we're looking to get the borrowing authorization in the fall, so that next year, when we submit our application, actually here on the 25th, no, this week it goes in, the deadline for the next year, will be all ready, hopefully to be within their new intended use plan for FY14.
So is this $3.X million, is that enough to cover the entire design and construction cost at SRF rates or at normal
At-
borrowing rates?
Yes, at SRF rates, so it's the 2%.
So if we don't get the 2%, we'd actually have to go back and get a larger borrowing to do the construction work.
The borrowing would be the same.
Would be the same,
It's the cost of the borrowing that
would be the difference. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much history, I mean, I only have like the last 3 years here, but this has been something that's been in the works for a number of years, primarily as a result of the roadway project. And it's been actually rather low on the radar because we've always scored so low compared to other communities, but as it turned out, we were elevated rather quickly, and unfortunately, the 2-month period, roughly 3-month period, to get everything in place just wasn't gonna happen.
Are you putting the same size line in?
No, it's gonna be a combination. I don't know the specifics without looking at the master plan. The master plan called for a number of hydraulic improvements along this area, basically the whole length of North and South Main Street, and also some asset management related improvements to that portion of the system. So the size would vary. I just don't know off the top of my head without looking at the plan.
Is this to happen at the same time, 122?
The intent would be to get it in there before that. Again, at the rate we're going, we're currently on the 2015 tip, but we still need to get some approvals to move out of the 25% design phase for the roadway reconstruction. So realistically, the road reconstruction portion is highly unlikely to occur prior to 2015. So it would be intended to get in there and get any of our utilities taken care of, any private utilities upgraded before the road construction happens.
So that's the $8 to $9 million afterward?
Excuse me?
Is that the $8 to $9 million road repair?
Yes.
So that's after the 3.2 million?
Nope, right, the deal on the roadway is the town is paying for the design fees, and the state is gonna do all the construction work through the tip. So we're right now just paying for the design of the roadway improvements through our Chapter 90 monies. And the construction is gonna be handled by the state.
And then we get the 30 million for the treatment plant. Moving right along, aren't we?
But
That's
again.
why we guess we need the bigger pipes.
The construction monies aren't even coming from the town. Those are coming from the state.
Same thing, it's just a different
I was
pocket.
gonna say the same thing.
Motion? Motion, seconded?
I second it, yep.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Article 13, transfer from wastewater enterprise retained earnings for the purchase of wastewater division equipment.
I move that the board include Article 13, transfer from wastewater enterprise retained earnings for the purchase of water waste division equipment in the annual fall town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Second.
Motion made second, discussion?
What are some of the items that you're going to?
It's for a sewer camera. The camera would be a robotic unit that we
Yeah.
would use to investigate, various aspects of the sewer system. They currently have a highly outdated model. It's a pusher, so they can only push it so far. This is something that they've been looking at procuring for quite some time, and it's only going to be heightened by our pending permit. There's a whole section within the new permit that they call CMOM, which is going to be directly related to system operation and maintenance, which includes reporting of what you're doing and how often and the frequency that you're doing it. So this is, it's a replacement unit for what they currently have, gives them a lot more capabilities to investigate problems within the system.
Is this something,
Not pushed, how does it move by itself?
Yep, it's fully robotic, comes on a roll. The unit that we're looking to get is a smaller scaled down version, something that they could either put in the back of a 4x4 pickup. What we're actually looking to use it for, or use it with, is the John Deere Gator that they have. It's big enough to fit in the bed portion of it. It's a unit that's probably about, a couple feet high. It houses all the electronics. It houses the hose reel with all the electronics, and I can easily forward along some additional information for you to show you what.
What's the smallest diameter pipe it'll go through?
It would go through, I believe these go through like a 4-inch pipe, but that's going to be tight. The smallest that we have is 8 and up to 36.
is this something that we can lease to other towns, kind of group, community?
I can't say no, because quite frankly, our operation and maintenance of the system has been on a barter scale as it is. As many of you know, back 3 years ago when we procured the jet truck, whenever we had a problem, we had to call Northbridge, and if their unit was broken down, they called Milford or anybody else that may have had one. How exactly that happens, it's like I said, it's more of a barter system, and some experience, some lab work, some actual assistance in the field. So it would definitely serve many purposes, not just within Uxbridge.
How often do you use one of these?
We will have to use it on a consistent basis, just like the jet truck. As I had mentioned, the CMOM regulations and the portion of the permit which is going to require that is going to require an annual report, outlining and identifying, what we're doing, how often we're doing it. Part of that is actually developing this maintenance plan going forward. So we'll have to, as part of the permit period, develop that plan and report on it on an annual basis. So it would be something that would be frequently used.
So it's a regular maintenance then, not just for trouble?
Correct. As a matter of fact, just like the jet truck, I mean, the jet truck is really to be used on a maintenance basis, not an emergency basis, so.
That's a pretty impressive piece of equipment.
Yeah, when you see some of the things that are floating down the sewer system that you just wouldn't expect, it is very interesting.
One of those jobs you don't mind automating?
Yeah.
The work is
You'd be amazed what's down in there.
used to fit into a 36-inch pipe once.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, now we get the 4 articles that were discussed during the year. First one is the amendment to Chapter 289 of the Uxbridge General Bylaws, sewer privilege fee.
Discussion.
Yes.
This doesn't make any sense. I read the nonsense letter to and from town council about, it doesn't mention municipal use and so on and so forth. It doesn't have to. The only thing a sewer system is concerned with is the amount of water and other materials that come into it. And if you look at those regulations, everything is based on, tables, residential tables. And then any non-residential use is equated to that. Because there are flow standards set by the DEP for any number of, there's a 4 pages of, lists every kind of industry or business. So it's not needed, and the notion that we're not going to charge the municipalities is not sustainable, because it is an enterprise fund, and the enterprise fund has to treat all users on an equivalent basis. If we don't do that, if the municipal organizations don't have as part of their budget what it costs to run and water and sewer and so forth and every aspect of it, then we don't know what different activities cost. It's not going to have any effect on anything, because the money is still going to come from municipal uses. The money comes from the general taxpayer, one of which is me.
The rate user.
And the general taxpayer, me. Because it's a municipal building, not just the ratepayers. The ratepayers pay for their own, the general taxpayer pays for all the municipal expenses. But we have to do that, otherwise there's no sense of having an enterprise fund.
Well, to tell you the truth, Peter, the enterprise fund we have isn't working.
Why isn't it?
Because we're not going any further from the town with sewer. We've stopped. And it's not gonna grow.
It
Well,
hasn't moved
it-
for 30 years.
It
Well,
can't,
that's
because-
okay.
Well,
But we could, yes, it has grown. It's been grown by private developers who said, well, it's more cost efficient for me to run town sewer than to put in private septic systems.
yeah, but when when that system went in down there on the Quaker Highway, we were told every year we would add on to it.
That's right.
And we paid that rate, and it never was added, other than the private contractors, the town never added.
And that Granite Street
I
is
mean-
the worst area, and we went
Yeah.
right around it.
So, for you to say this fee that should be charged, to me, if we're charging a municipality a fee, we're gonna pay for it anyways. And you're gonna pay for it too, as a taxpayer.
Absolutely, I
right.
understand that. I know
But-
I'm gonna pay for it.
To keep saying that the fees that to me, it
The
doesn't
town
work.
was gonna add on to the sewer system. And where was the money gonna come from to expand the sewer system? We'd have to appropriate the money,
Correct.
right? And we'd hope to get that money back from the people who hook up to the system,
Correct.
right?
But we haven't moved it.
And
I think we had a
neither
grant
have
one
we
time to
paid
go
to
down the
extend
highway.
it. We haven't added to it, but neither have we paid to add to it. I mean, come on.
Well, because the DPW, are they gonna extend it? If we
Well,
make the
if they can make-
appropriation,
If the DPW can make a case, a business case, gee whiz, if we extend the sewer line by 2 miles up this certain street, we can recover the cost of that addition from the people who hook up from that section, and the revenue, the usage revenue will help offset the other capital costs.
I agree.
Okay.
And then we have everybody fighting that they don't wanna hook up.
Well, no, you can.
Just like
you can-
Douglas Street.
You can address that. You can address that. The other street was a special occasion because that extension was not done by the town. It was done by a developer. And that's why we didn't force people to hook up if they didn't want to hook up.
Well, so every developer that extends it, we're not gonna tell them you don't have to hook up.
If you can pass
It depends on,
Title V.
if you depend, if
then you have to
you
hook
can, look at that depending on what the facts and circumstances are.
Well, I'm just saying, this enterprise fee account that we have, it's never gonna grow. I don't care if you put every municipality on
What
it,
do you mean it's never gonna grow?
because we're not adding to it.
Of course it grows. You look at the enterprise revenues from years ago compared to now, of course it grows.
Well, it grows,
With
it just,
inflation.
it doesn't, in relation to what's being, it just doesn't, we don't hook up 50 houses a year. We never will, and we're not gonna. So people like you out in South Uxbridge, you
Yeah.
don't have to hook up anything. And there's a lot of houses, because it's so, 300 feet between each house.
That's right, where it doesn't pay to run.
Right.
So I understand that. Everyone understands that. That has nothing to do with an enterprise fund, Peter.
Well, I think it does, but that's,
Well, tell me how. Tell me how.
Separate from this, the other issue I see with it is, you're borrowing, anytime we do anything municipal-wise to build out where we tap into a resource, we're gonna take a borrowing to do that. And we're gonna
Yes.
say, pay an interest rate on that.
Yes.
And then when the plant goes to do its expansion, it's gonna do a borrowing. So now we're borrowing on money to pay off a borrowing, so we're gonna get double whammied on the interest rate every time.
I don't understand that
We're
logic.
not paying cash as a town. If we were gonna put in, an infrastructure expansion for $100,000, we're gonna borrow the money to go out and pay the $100,000.
True.
Right? Now, if we're gonna put a school onto that expansion,
Yeah.
or a municipal building, we're gonna go out and borrow the money to build that municipal building, to pay for the
True.
hookup fee, which is gonna get
Yes.
$100,000 plus a percentage fee on top of it,
Yes.
to pay back $100,000 plus an
Yes.
interest fee on it. So we're just creating this cascading, payment of interest, as opposed to
No, no, no.
borrowing the money
This,
within the expansion piece, and then the municipal piece picking up their pro rata share later, which won't be done via a borrowing. It'll be done through straight taxation.
Plus, all
well,
the
that's
equipment
how
is starting to
all the
fade.
money goes in. The money that comes into the municipality as a whole is through taxation primarily.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is a straight taxation rate, doesn't have an interest rate on top of it.
Well, yes, it does. Because when we borrow money for the school, for instance, the payment of that interest comes from me and you.
Correct, which is directly related to the project. But if you're
Sure.
gonna pay for an expansion piece through normal operating budget,
Yes.
you're not gonna pay the interest on it.
That's correct. The enterprise fund, if it's an enterprise that borrows it,
Correct.
the enterprise fund is going to pay the principal and interest. The benefit to the enterprise fund of having a general obligation bond is if they save on the interest cost, substantially save on the interest cost. So it's a benefit to the enterprise fund, but there's no direct cost to the general taxpayer so long as the enterprise fund makes the payments. But if we keep telling the enterprise fund, oh, this person rides free, he rides free, we don't think, not you, but she can ride free.
But municipal doesn't ride free, because municipal always gotta be picked up by the taxpayer at the end. Whatever the gap is that's left for the municipality, it has to be picked up by the taxpayer.
There is a subgroup of taxpayers, which are the ratepayers on the water and sewer
Completely
system.
understand.
Okay. You say you understand, but your conclusion indicates that you don't really understand. Because the ratepayers legitimately pay the cost, all the costs of providing water and sewer to the ratepayers. It's also fair that the municipality, municipally owned buildings pay the same cost. That way, people who are not on the water sewer system, like myself, are gonna pay that. Because it's a municipal building, and municipal
Get value
buildings
out of
have to pay those things. I'm gonna pay.
And we have perceived value out of municipal buildings. Understood. But if you borrow money, if I borrow $100,000 to build something,
Yes.
at 5% interest, and then I need to pay that $100,000 off by borrowing another 5% for a school project or a new town hall, you're now paying interest on top of interest. Whereas opposed to raising that money just out of straight taxation, you're not paying the interest cost. If it's $100,000.
How are we gonna raise the $5 million
We don't know what the
with straight
bill is.
taxation?
We don't know what the bill is. And that's,
Well, we
you
know
can't
what-
you can't make a generalized statement without knowing what the bill is. There's
It
two
doesn't
halves to
matter what the bill
equation.
is. We don't start these projects, for instance, the replacement of the water line, we're not gonna start that project or fund it until we know what the cost is. And when we vote, we know what the cost is. So I don't understand that part of the argument.
For the point of this, getting back to this particular article, I think when we went through this exercise, whether you are for it or against it, I think the interpretation of what the bylaw says now and how it references the documents in Mass General Law and documents that aren't necessarily originally written and crafted to support our assessment of a privilege fee is really where we need to focus our attention as sewer commissioners to fix. for the next one. And
We
then,
can-
then
we
we
can
can
do
have the
that.
argument,
Yes,
blue in the
we
face,
can do
whether we
that.
think municipal
Absolutely.
folks should pay or not. But I think the first thing we should really do is say, are we addressing the way this is written in our bylaws so that it's crystal clear as to how you derive the rate cost? 'Cause that was one of the biggest problems I think we ran into when we went through this with the school was, you know, is it a municipal building, is it not? Is it under this particular calculation formula for calculating the gallons and flow rate, or should we do it this way? So I look at this, I don't think it addresses this. That
This
particular
doesn't,
problem that
no.
we have right now.
But the DPW regulations do address it, because the flow calculations are based on the DEP standards. And for instance, for residences, it's based on bedrooms. For
And they do a
schools,
residential equivalent. We can-
it's based on
I
number of
completely-
pupils and a different calculation for the offices. You know?
Or it's based on existing rate flows.
No,
No, read it. Or it's based on existing rate flows.
what is?
The way that you can calculate, the way that document reads today, it says, and this could be a difference of opinion on how you read that document. It makes it very muddy as to what are the appropriate ways to calculate it. And it
Okay.
offers two different ways. to
If
do
it is in fact muddy,
In
I
my
want to get the
opinion.
mud out.
Yeah, and that's what my interest is.
Okay, that's fine, but
And I
this
don't
has
think
nothing to
this-
do with
I
that.
don't think the way this is written right now
We'll accomplish that.
will accomplish that.
Can we just drop
Okay? What was the motion?
Did I get
We
anything
made
wrong
it,
there?
second?
No, nobody made the motion.
All right,
Oh, all right.
I move that the board include or / not include the article amendment.
One or the other.
Oh, I
Do we
move
have to
that the
make a
board
motion? We don't have to
include.
make a motion, but
Oh,
we have
okay.
to just pass it.
We'll pass over.
That's what I asked.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. The next one is the amendment to chapter 233 of the Uxbridge General Bylaws, licenses and permits. Again, this is on a municipality activity. Whether we should be, well, you gotta get a permit, but should we be charging the municipalities for it?
Yes. And there's a reason for that. Okay? The permits, I don't know if anyone ever read it, but some time ago, I sent every member of the board an explanation of how permit fees and fees in general have to be done. The fees are supposed to be set to reflect the actual cost of providing the services provided in an efficient way, not blown up to make them exorbitant. So again, if there's a cost to something, now, when the town has a building built, and it's going to be inspected, there are fees. And the cost of the fees should be part of the construction cost. Of course, the bid, when bids are given, they always say, plus any fees, municipal fees. So we're gonna pay those fees. But we have to know what they are, and they have to come in as fees, so that we'll know whether a certain department is collecting too much money in fees or not enough money in fees. That's the whole idea of accounting, cost accounting. You need to know what every activity costs. If you don't, you're going to go bankrupt very, very quickly.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna pass over this article too.
Any other discussions? Myself, I differ from you, Pete. I think that, again, municipalities, they have to have the permit, insurance purposes, but the fee, it's a fee that if we charge the contractor to build us a building,
Yes.
we're gonna pay
That's exactly
as
right.
taxpayers.
That's right.
And you're still gonna have that fee rate on the permit, so you will know what the fee was, but I don't think.
But who's gonna look, at the end of the year, who's gonna look at all these fees? No one. The only
We're
way to
talking
look at it.
municipalities now, we're not
Yes.
talking commercial,
No, no.
residential.
I'm talking about that, because right now, the building department, for instance, they keep track of all the money they receive for electrical fees and plumbing fees and building fees, okay? At the Board of Health, we keep track of all these fees. They're paid into the treasury as a general fund.
Right.
But every department knows how much they took in fees, and every department knows what our expenses are for our expenses and personnel and so forth. So you need that. I agree, we're gonna pay, we pay for everything
Well,
anyway.
you're always looking to keep the cost down on projects. If you got a $300,000 project and it's a municipality that we need, that's gonna be part of this town, then why can't we cut it back some?
Okay, are we cutting it back by not paying the inspector? Do we tell the inspector, we're gonna reduce your salary?
That's an option that the town manager can make.
Well, we haven't made it yet, it's not likely we're gonna make it, okay? But,
We've done it.
well, I don't know.
Yes, we have.
Because, keep in mind now, the permit fee doesn't all go to the inspector. Some of it's, you know, goes into, you know, the keeping, you know, the other
Just the
staff.
paperwork, yeah.
Paperwork and the other things
Yeah.
and so forth. But it's important that we know where the money comes from and where it goes.
Right.
There's no savings here either way, but I wanna know what things cost.
So that's a bookkeeping exercise.
Yes, but the only way to keep the books is to keep track, and if we say you don't have to pay a fee for this particular inspection or permit, then there is no accounting for it.
But then we're paying, get back to the other point is, again, you're borrowing money to build the DPW shed for $100,000, and you're paying an interest rate to pay it back, to only pay a portion of that back to yourself. So you're marking up your building fee's 10 grand, you're paying the interest fee on 10 grand to pay yourself.
Well,
which is-
okay, you can say that, but if we wanna look at it in that sense, we have to start asking questions like, why do we have that lit sign saying the new high school flashing, you know, let's look at all these expenses.
LED.
Instead of these things.
But
you
this
know?
is the one that's on the table,
Yeah,
we can pick out cost savings across the board on 1,000 different things, but this is the one we're talking about tonight, right?
I don't know if it's a cost savings, but I'm not in favor of,
Well, I'm not in favor of marking up our own bookkeeping in order to keep ourselves honest.
no, we're
And I
not
think we should
marking,
just keep
I
ourselves
don't think we're
honest.
marking up the bookkeeping.
Well, until we start paying cash for everything, we're always gonna be marking up with an interest rate.
Right. No motion?
No motion.
Pass over, and that's, again, that's up to the town manager, whether he waives it or not, so. All right, acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 59. No, he passed over it.
Okay.
Which one are we on now?
The acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5N, related to
Okay.
veterans' property tax work-off. This is like the seniors, if you have a veteran that wants to do a work-off program. I don't know if there's a rate set or anything. I
There
would
is.
guess it's like 500 or something off
It's,
their
it's,
taxes.
it's not much.
I move that the board include
Can we get, oh, go ahead, Bruce.
the article acceptance of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5N, relative to Veterans Property Tax Work-Off Program in the fall annual town meeting warrant of November 20th, 2012.
Seconded.
Motion been made and seconded, discussion.
Could someone just provide a little more detail into what this means?
Well, this works like the seniors.
Like
You're
senior
over,
work-off.
you work for the town for 62 hours, I believe. And you get $500 taken off your taxes.
2 hours a year?
Yes.
Do we have to appropriate money to fund the program, as we do with the work-off program?
That question, I don't know.
Yes.
It's free.
I don't know
So
if
we
it's,
have to appropriate the money.
Right.
So this is an actual expenditure. So in other words, the,
I don't know what we appropriate for the,
those of us who are not on the work-off program are going to necessarily have our taxes increased for the people who are on the work-off program.
It's the price you pay of being a veteran.
That's right.
They should be able to come back and get some benefit.
Just to help them out till they
Yeah,
can find a
that's-
job.
You know, I'm a veteran and I agree with
No,
all
you
those
are.
things. But if you really want to help veterans, if you want to help everybody, we have to get rid of the property tax. And everything else we're doing is nonsense.
What's the qualification? You have to be unemployed as a veteran or any
No,
veteran?
just veteran.
There are income requirements.
Yeah.
And there are disability requirements. And if you look at them, they're pretty tough. There are asset requirements, you know,
Okay, you can't
I
be
get
making-
calls all the time from people, and very few qualify for them. And in the end, it doesn't help them enough to make a difference.
But some people, just as with the seniors, some people choose to take
You get quite a
advantage of it.
few, they
It's
fill the
not-
program
Yeah,
up
there are a
every
few,
year.
it's not widely used, but.
And it doesn't, you don't get it every year either.
For the meeting, will we have estimates? How many veterans we have in town, how many people we believe would participate in the program, so people have an idea of whether we're talking about $10,000, $100,000.
Well, I think you set a,
Is it a cap?
you would set,
We set the amount I think we started out by appropriating $10,000 for the senior work-off program.
So we'd go through the
Again,
same
as
exercise.
Peter mentioned, the problem is, you can't get it year after year. So, okay, I don't have enough money to pay my taxes this year, so I have this work-off program, I can sneak by with taxes this year. Next year, somebody else gets it, my neighbor gets it. So now, I don't have my head chopped off today, it's next week.
well, it's more so that more than one person can.
Yeah, no, I
And
understand
it's not a
that.
lot of money, but they're welcome to get a chance. Right. So,
Get a motion?
there's been a motion and a second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Transfer care and control of pond portions thereof from the Conservation Commission to the Board of Selectmen.
I never understood why this got on the,
I know,
here. We had talked about it.
I think that's why it was on there, just because we
Yeah,
talked
but
about it.
You see, it's the board is responsible for the warrant. And,
Passover.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
okay, I'll take care of that. Here, there you
Okay. Hi, Ben. Update stormwater bylaw.
I can actually keep this rather brief. As you all know, we are in the process of trying to craft a bylaw for the town so that we are in compliance with our EPA and PDS MS4 permit. The Stormwater Committee was reconvened last year, early summer, midsummer-ish, to work on crafting that. We initially took the one that was presented at the 2007 town meeting. We basically cut that back quite a bit and tried to make it a core document that we could all live with. We got to the point where, we put it forward at the spring annual town meeting. We all know that it failed miserably. The Stormwater Committee has reconvened. We've kind of gone through it. We feel that we are at a point where we need additional input. We feel that the document is good as it stands. However, we did make some, what I consider Scribner minor edits to them, or at least to the document, which you all should have. One of those, for example, was actually denoting the correct area square footages of an acre of land, which is the legal requirement. So really what I'm here for is to, and we don't have to talk in detail, this is something that we can definitely put on a future agenda or agendas to discuss, but I'd like to, kind of encourage the board to get involved with this process. There was a lot of heated exchange at town meeting with people not knowing about this bylaw, what it entailed, which, I'll take some credit for that, but quite frankly, we had, I think it was a total of 11 Stormwater Committee meetings that were posted and open to the public. The only attendee that we ever had at one of those meetings was Russ Holden from the Conservation Commission, and that was like one of the first 2 or 3 meetings. I personally sent this out to every department, board, commission, well before the warrant even opened or closed for the spring annual town meeting, and not one comment was received by the Stormwater Committee. At town meeting, questions were brought up. There were issues and concerns with people not knowing what this was about. So this is why we're here. I'm here to encourage the board to get involved with this. This is something we have no choice in. We have to pass a bylaw so that we are in compliance with our permit.
What's the
Second,
ramifications if we don't? We will not get
fines.
the new.
Daily fines for being out of compliance.
And they start when, for how much?
I could verify the exact number, but last I looked, it was $16,000 a day per occurrence.
16?
16,000 per day, per occurrence for violating the permit. We are this permit was issued in 2003. We are awaiting for the new version of that permit. These are 5-year permits, by the way, so yes, the EPA is far behind, as you well know, with the wastewater side of the permitting process. And I can tell you, the EPA will not look kindly on municipalities that have had since 2003 to enact, a bylaw or an ordinance, in that time period. They are already cracking down on everything from non-compliance with annual reporting to actual water quality violations. Just because we're an Uxbridge of 14,000 people, we're not a Fall River or we're not a Worcester, doesn't matter. They will come and get us.
What's the meeting? What was the committee's findings as to why people were so against it?
I think it was evident. People got up to support the argument that they didn't have the opportunity to weigh in on this, which I find hard to believe considering we had so many committee meetings and it was circulated through the town prior to town meeting.
So you think it was just that they didn't have a chance to voice it, not that they were concerned? My takeaway on it was, from being there, was I thought they were apprehensive to have an enforcement agency in the Conservation Commission be able to regulate this thing.
Well, that should have been a comment I feel that should have been brought up. I mean,
But
I
if that,
guess
no, I'm just asking you if that's one of the
that could be, that
concerns.
was one of them.
And you're asking for our support.
Well,
Can you validate the concern, and how do we as a board help mitigate that concern?
Well, I guess, one thing, I would just like to encourage, some involvement of the board, because ultimately, we need the buy-in of the board to help us sell this to the rest of the town. To do that, if it's an issue of enforcement and who's to do it, we feel that the document that was crafted is just a consolidation of everything that we already do into one cohesive document. Conservation is involved with projects, through the notice of intent application, all the anything relative to the commission's jurisdiction under the Wetlands Protection Act. The planning board is involved with subdivision rules and regulations. There's a common overlap there when it comes to drainage and stormwater management. So the Conservation Commission is already enforcing what's under their jurisdiction through the Wetlands Protection Act. The planning board is enforcing their jurisdiction through those items that fall under the subdivision control. So, whether it's the Conservation Commission, whether it's the town manager's office, whether it's the DPW, we're open for discussion. I think what I would like to ask is,
Ben, can I just start to interrupt?
Yep.
But can I summarize what you said and tell me if I'm misunderstanding it or not? We're already doing this. You are no more liable for anything that you currently have to, kind of boundaries you have to live within today than the day after we pass this bylaw. Did I hear, is that the gist of what you're saying, or am I being too liberal with that interpretation?
Say that one more time.
We already are, these rules and regulations are already being enforced at an individual level within the departments and the committees that oversee these functions, and all this bylaw does is put a big bow on it and put it into a single reference point. Is that a fair interpretation? Correct, not a fair, a correct interpretation.
Yeah, that's, for the
of what you
most part,
said.
that's correct.
What's the for most part?
Well, the next step to this process is the development of the actual regulation, and with all the specific detailed information. I wasn't around in 2007 when they brought forth the first one, but it's my understanding that there was a lot of technical detail intertwined within that really made it difficult for people to understand. Our approach was to pull all that out and basically craft a document, a guidance document, a regulation off to the side, which would have all that specific information. What the permitting process is gonna be. Is there gonna be a stormwater permit required? You know, the design considerations that need to be looked at to comply with the overall umbrella of the NPDS permit. That, and the other piece to that was, if all that information was in this bylaw, if any of the regulations changed on any of those requirements, we'd have to come back and amend this bylaw. So keeping that, you know, in a regulation outside, you know, outside of this, supporting this, was the better direction that we, you know, that we felt as a committee to move forward with.
But I just want to, the planning board, well, actually, the engineering takes care of stormwater management in subdivisions, correct? They take it out, they take care of stormwater, rainwater, whatever coming out of
Yeah.
that subdivision.
Well, I guess the ultimate responsibility lies with the town. The town is the permit holder. The town is responsible for discharges to waters of the United States. At that point of the process, we're talking about construction activities. I mean, I don't want to go into a lot of the details, but there's certain components of the MS4 program, which is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Program, which includes post-construction, the after, when everything is done, what we do on the maintenance and operation end. There's the construction activities, which covers all activities that disturb more than an acre. So part of the planning board process and the Conservation Commission process is, and even my input, depending on the availability, has to do with the review of those plans and ensuring you know, the plans that are presented and ultimately approved by planning and conservation adhere to all the requirements of the stormwater management standards.
Right, but that's what, like Jay was saying, I mean, we do stormwater management today.
Well,
In separate entities, planning board, conservation. And I think last time it was, the big question was having conservation being the gatekeeper, as you may.
That was the first, second, third, fourth, fifth,
Right,
and
correct.
sixth
Yeah.
reason. And for good reason, because under the things that are exempt, normal maintenance and improvement of land and agricultural use, and then further, normal maintenance of existing landscaping, gardens, or lawn areas associated with dwelling houses or commercial structures. Sounds reasonable, you know, you exempt that stuff. But people sat and watched the Conservation Commission, where they're, you know, from night after night, a meeting after meeting with poor Mr. True, because he mowed the lawn. And the Conservation Commission said, well, that wasn't lawn area, that's not lawn area, because you have some grass this high. Well, the house was owned by an 80-year-old lady that stopped mowing the lawn for a couple of years. And under the Conservation Commission's theory, if you don't mow it every week, then it's not a lawn anymore. You know, this is the kind of thing that drives people crazy. I noticed you still have here.
Can I interject here really quickly? Remember, we're voting to include on the warrant here, this isn't a recommendation. Tonight's discussion isn't about,
Well, this isn't
I
going
thought he
on
was.
yet.
This isn't even on for the spring. I don't want to make
Yeah,
that
this
clear.
isn't for the warrant now, this is,
Yeah.
This one is just for input back.
Yeah,
For future.
but he wants to know why it failed, and I think it's important that everybody know why it's failed. You're exempting town-owned public ways, but not private roads.
Well, but again, you gotta understand too, what is the threshold by which they need to comply with the permit? Are you disturbing more than an acre? If you are, you need to get an NPDS permit. You know, that's the kind of information that's gonna be, more of the details on what the permitting process is gonna be in that guidance document. Just because we go out and clean catch basins, doesn't mean we have to file anything under the NPDS. We're required to clean those catch basins by virtue of having that permit. So the threshold that is, you know, what is the threshold that's gonna be exceeded? That's gonna dictate what needs to be done. If somebody has to go out and regrade, you know, their little private drive of 3 houses, I mean, is that gonna exceed an acre? If it does, you file a notice of intent. And the notice of intent is not with the
What people
conservation.
have is that the because keep in mind, if I'm doing some work here, there isn't a fence around the area that I'm working.
Right.
So someone's gonna look at it and say, what area are you going to disturb? And the Conservation Commission might look at it and say, oh, yeah, well, this exceeds the 1 acre.
Well, I actually, to
I
move
think,
this process
excuse me, but
along,
yeah, I think
let me just
we
leave
could
you
have this
with,
as an article on the agenda. I think we should bring it back.
Yes.
And, because tonight we could talk about it.
we
I
could
think
talk,
it's-
we could talk for hours on this. So if I could just leave you with a couple of questions that say for the next time at a future meeting, what are the issues with this bylaw? What are the obstacles that you see coming forward? I'm more than happy to reach out. I've already reached out to a number of people. Today I spoke with the two-state coordinator for stormwater for Massachusetts and Rhode Island. She's willing to, to get some involvement of other professionals to come in and give you any technical presentations that you may not, or may want to hear, not just from me. I'm open to.
The biggest challenge is we're trying, you're asking, and this is not unique to Uxbridge, but we're selling a removal of liberties at a cost to the town, right? People are gonna lose something, whether that's the choice to treat their property the way they used to, and ultimately, this is getting imposed on us as a cost as a taxpayer, right?
Without a doubt.
And that's our challenge. I'm not sure that a technical presentation
Well,
or anything else is gonna be the.
it's an offer out on the table that if there are any specific questions that I may not be able to.
How have other towns got it to pass, I guess would be the first question, where you've got a situation where you're selling bad news.
I guess the good news part of this, the whole intent of the program on the stormwater and wastewater side is to better the water quality. The control measures included within the permit, the intent is to better the water quality in the waters of the United States. So, yes,
One of the things you're not supposed to do is to dump grass clippings on a bank end leading down into a river. Shortly after the Springtown meeting, I did a video, so I went to the high school, and there's a fence behind where the studio is, and there's an opening in the fence, so I was curious, so I walked through the fence, and what do you suppose I saw? A big pile of grass clippings at the top of the bank end, you see? So, when I see anything that exempts the government, but doesn't exempt other people, I don't go for it. I want the government to obey the same rules that I have to.
Again, I think there's a little confusion here, because I know there's a lot of attention being put on the Conservation Commission. The Conservation has jurisdiction with things that fall under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yes,
Part of this falls under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yes.
Part of this falls under subdivision control
Yes.
law. So whether we're talking about something being put in a resource area, Conservation does have a say in what goes in a resource area.
yes.
You may not
And
agree
that's
with
what
that,
frightens
but that's the
people,
way the
because
Wetlands Protection Act
they,
is.
they tend to include the entire surface of the earth as a resource area. And if you look at their proposed whole town conservation bylaw, you will see what I mean. There won't be
I've
one
read it.
square inch of the town not covered by them. And I want to tell you, people are frightened to death because there's still, among many Americans, a belief that they should have some rights on their property. And most of us have a belief that we, the owners of the property, are always better stewards of property than the government is. And I can give you endless examples of that.
And I can also give you endless examples of the opposite too. I mean, there's always
Sure.
a thing on both sides. But with that said, that's our intent as a committee, is to elicit more input from boards, commissions,
When's your
and the
next
public.
meeting?
We haven't set one, but we're gonna be setting it probably within the next 2 weeks. And, along with that, I'm looking to do some kind of public informational sessions, say in conjunction with like the Blackstone River watershed or something of that nature at Riverbend Farm. So,
May I ask you one quick note on this, just to get off from it? Are you having a public hearing on the sewer? With you guys, with the,
there will be, on the sewer treatment plant,
yeah,
there
you
will
haven't set
be.
one yet, right?
We don't have a date set. That'll come out when they issue the draft permit, which we are still anticipating probably next week for that to be published.
Okay, thanks.
When you had this meeting, was Conservation going to be involved?
It'll be open to everybody.
Well, I'm just saying that we've signed up for notices from conservation and a few other departments in the town. You know, maybe you could kind of just send out an email to everyone.
Sure.
I don't know if it's a big deal, but
Nope, that's easy enough to do. Whenever I post the meeting agenda, I can make sure that goes out to all departments, boards, and commissions.
Thank you. Okay, now that you're up there. You got, new developments on East Hartford Ave culvert?
Yeah, I can make this really quick too, hopefully. It's been a while since I've been in front of you for that. For those of you that don't know, it's the culvert that comes underneath East Hartford Ave from the Whiten Pond. The Mumford River, there's basically three connections that come across the road. You have a westerly head race, the main stem of the river, and an easterly head race that comes underneath the Larkin Building right on the corner of Whiten Street, right along the Progressive Club. Back in 2007, that culvert failed. The road has been posted with a weight restriction, and we all know that, signs that are up for an extended period of time, people don't pay attention. So heavy trucks are, driving over that, which should not be. There is an impact on the town. Buses, DPW fleet vehicles, exceed that. Fire, ambulance, so there's alternate routes that, are supposed to be taken. It's been kicking around since 2007. Talked about it in-house quite a bit for a while, and then finally I made a move to get our consultant involved in coming up with a solution, and the solution that we came up with was to replace in kind the culvert that's underneath the road. That way we could, open back the road to full traffic officially, and alleviate the concerns with the roadway. Approximately in April, the owners, the tenants of that Larkin Building right on the corner of East Hartford Ave and Whiten Street came forward and wanted to discuss, collaboratively, moving forward, because they are having some substantial issues with their building due to similar situations that we encountered in the roadway.
and a very vivid picture was delivered by this gentleman here.
Right, and
Wow.
Attorney Knappich is here just to, give you a very quick, understanding of what's going on, because essentially, from the DPW's perspective, I put our consultant on hold since April so they could try to establish, what exactly is the problem or the extent of the problem, and see what we can do collectively, because, the last thing that we want to do here is work in a bubble and, create something that's just not going to work for our neighbor. So if you,
I got a
Okay.
quick question for you before
Shoot.
Attorney Knappich comes up. What's the story on the Heckler Street Bridge? Forget quickly.
well, I don't really have a quick answer to that. That might be something you might want to put on the agenda for another
I'll
meeting.
talk to you later then.
We'll have to meet with you every other Tuesday night.
I'll call you tomorrow or I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Ben, and thank you, gentlemen, for the opportunity to represent you. I too will be brief, but this is a very important issue to the folks I represent, and those people are the owners of the 6 condominium units that comprise the Mumford River condominium. And what I've given you is a handout that consists of an aerial photograph that will give you some context, although I suspect that most of you are familiar with the area. The Larkin Building is located right about in the middle of the aerial photograph at the corner of Whiten Street and Hartford Avenue, and it's the old brick market building that was part of, and remains part of Rogerson's Village, an historic mill village that was really centered around the Crown and Eagle Mill. The mill village consisted of the mill, some housing, and the market building. That was converted into a condominium, and as I said, there are 6 owners. There are 4 residential units and 2 commercial units. The aggregate value by your assessor is approximately $1 million. As Ben mentioned, there's a head race, a man-made channel that begins at Whiten Pond, sort of near the Progressive Club, flows southerly within an open channel, flows beneath the building, the Larkin Building, beneath Hartford Avenue, and flows again in an open channel along Crown and Eagle Drive, I think it's called. So at some point in the relatively recent past, the structural engineer hired by my client suspects that there was some flood event or events that caused there to be a significant flow of water in that head race below the building that caused some scouring and undermining of some of the structural elements of the building. And you can't see it terribly well in the photos, but in your travels, I would encourage you to just take a look at the sidewalk in front of the building and also the southerly facade of the building, or the facade that faces Hartford Avenue. There's a very obvious deflection or bow in that building that's there as a result of the settling of some of the structural elements. So for my clients, there's a real need to do something to remedy what's there and prevent any further and future compromising of the structure. So I was retained to try to help them through that, and Mr. Sherman's been very helpful and willing to meet, because the residents and the town have a similar interest. As you no doubt know, and as Ben mentioned, the same sort of failure occurred in Hartford Avenue. So, long story short, the residents have consulted with a structural engineer, and on his advice, really the best remedy, the most efficient remedy, and the one that is most likely to prevent any future deterioration of the building is to cut off the flow of water in that channel beneath the building, get under there and shore up the sagging structural components, and then install permanent structural repairs, and then fill in the channel. We recognize...
And divert the water to the main channel?
Pardon me?
And divert the water to the main channel?
Yes,
Okay.
most likely. So as you're looking at the map, or as you can think of the site, somewhere upstream of the building or to the north of the building, there'd be some fill, and that would continue right on through. And Ben, I think, has agreed that from the town's perspective, although for a variety of reasons he's correctly assumed that maybe some of the impediments to filling in the channel within the roadway have so far prevented that option. If left, to his own devices, that would be the easiest, the most cost-effective solution for the town. In other words, not to install a culvert within Hartford Avenue, but simply to open it up, do whatever utility work is necessary, fill it in with structural fill, and pave over it. So to the extent that there's a consistent or common goal, we've begun to collaborate with the DPW in the hopes of implementing that. We did meet with the Conservation Commission informally last week. We do envision that there would be some permitting required. Obviously, building permit for an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission, and because it is in a historic district, although we haven't completely determined what level of review, but perhaps some level of review by the Corridor Commission. We also...
What historic district is that? I don't recall that being in a historic district.
It is on the National Register, the building, and I think all of...
The building, does that mean that the land around it is...
Again, that's yet to be determined, but I think the answer is yes, because as I understand it, Rogerson's Village is on the register. So there may be some level, listing on the register doesn't preclude you from doing
I know.
more or less what you want to do. But there may be some level of oversight or review. We also recognize that there are some adjacent landowners, most notably the downstream landowners, that have an interest in preserving water in the channel, at least insofar as it's when it daylights again on the southerly side of Hartford Avenue, namely the Strathmoreshire condominium folks, or more likely the Uxbridge Housing Associates, the operators of the Crown and Eagle Mill. So we've considered and are sort of working through details of the extent to which we preserve some flow of water through the building. We think that even if we don't, however, that there should be an alternative supply of water that's already there that supplies water to that section of the head race, as I call it, between Hartford Avenue and the mill. And that's the watershed that ends, if you will, at Peaceful Pond, the little pond right across Crown and Eagle Drive. There's a culvert that connects that pond to the head race. So there are certainly some details to work out, some issues to consider that relate to, water rights and such. But to the extent that the town, in the person of Mr. Sherman and the board agree that working, collaboratively is a good idea, then that's certainly what the residents are interested in as well.
Who owns parcel, is it 1394? This piece here.
To the left.
That, I believe, is still owned by the entity, limited liability company that created the Mumford River condominium. So they divided
Okay.
parcel.
Say, let's get the work done.
Have you, can you look at the race that's under the building?
Can we look at what under?
Is it visible? Can you?
Yes.
Have access to it?
I mean, yeah, Attorney Knappich can definitely speak more to that, and, it's fortunate that we got to this point and they approached us because we were moving, quite well and proceeding forward with our design. They've been able to get underneath there and make some level of structural evaluation. At the current time, I know that they're investigating like more of an emergency type situation where they can petition or actually file an emergency application with the Conservation Commission to do what he was just mentioning, dam it off, de-water, get in there and do a full structural evaluation of the building, and then move forward to the next step, which would be what's the best way to then fix that. And as he had mentioned, there is an impact, or there could be, we are definitely in this together, because if the decision or through the permitting process is to fill it, that's gonna save us a lot of money in the construction costs on the project. Unfortunately, the town, we were kind of literally between a rock and a hard place because we had no ability or control of those lands. And then you throw in the water rights and those issues relative to that head race. That's what prompted me when we first started this to do the culvert. So, yeah, again, there is some accessibility.
If that's blocked off, the part under the building, then, and if it were a permanent diversion to the other canal, would it handle the flow?
What handle the flow?
Would the larger canal handle the flow?
Oh, I mean, that would all be something that would be
don't
part
know
of the
yet.
design process.
Okay.
It's similar to, the question, can it be closed off and diverted upstream?
Yeah.
Again, there's a lot of issues ranging from, the environmental component to the potential historic component, that we're trying to look at collectively, so.
Under the building, what is the construction of the canal?
Under the building, the head race is shored up, and there are piers, mostly granite piers that
Okay.
did rest on footings.
Okay.
And they were, from the photos that I've seen, within the head race, within the channel. And as I said, the suspicion is that through some scouring, those footings were actually undermined to the point
Okay.
that some of them are suspended in air, which is obviously not a good situation from a structural
What's holding
standpoint.
them up?
They're suspended. They're somehow attached to what they're supposed to be holding up.
Side walls of the canal, granite?
They vary, it's unusual in that outside of the building, that there are granite sidewalls, as you may have seen. But within the building, oddly, there's not a lot of structural support. By the way, it might be helpful to you to know, to your question about the flow of water and the relief. The head race is such that at the inlet side of it, so way up at Whiten Pond by the Progressive Club, there's a structure, and there's a series of flashboards that don't allow water into the head race. They're leaking, there's leakage through this flashboard, so there's some small flow of water. So that's the control at the upstream side. Similarly, at the end of the head race, or where the head race would have flows into a more vertical structure right at the corner of the mill, where you can see some of the remnants of what would have been some sort of wheel or other civil works that were turned by the water, that turned shafts, et cetera. There's a similar configuration, a series of flashboards, and there's just a little bit of leaking through those flashboards. But certainly, if the permits were obtained to permanently block off the water below the building, then there would be the need to construct some sort of relief, conduit, a culvert, either connecting the head race to the main stem of the Mumford River, which is located right nearby, also within a granite block channel, or potentially into any street drainage that might be within Whiten Avenue, which undoubtedly ultimately ends up back in the head race anyway. Because to have no, outlet would mean that in a flood or a failure of the flashboards, the channel would fill up and overtop. And it actually probably wouldn't be the end of the world, because if you look at it with that in mind, you can see that it would probably just flow down the parking lot and into the river, but it's not a good design to have no outlet.
So in summary, we're looking at what it costs now and when, if we do it alone. or
Yeah,
if
I
we
mean,
partner,
in
what it
summary, this
costs
is,
and
yeah,
when,
this is
right?
kind of like a two-part update. One, again, it's been a while. We have been moving. I know there hasn't been a lot of, visible work that you can see. But, with the recent developments with the abutter, we're trying to do what we can. They're trying to do what they can to arrive at this common solution. Hopefully the final outcome will have, at least from my end of things and my perspective, a decrease in construction costs. That would be good. But again, this was really just a little primer to get everybody back up to speed in case, any questions come around, or, any abutters or anything come forward and want to ask you any questions. So again, this is just a primer to let you know what's happening and kind of where we're going at this point.
Is it safe to say if we can figure out a joint solution together, it'll be decreased construction costs, but just probably sooner to get the funding of the project done than we originally anticipated?
Well, at this point, we were hoping to be probably in construction. But, a little bit more time is not going to hurt at this stage of the game, to evaluate other alternatives outside of our umbrella or our envelope of concern. So, I mean, in the long run, we'd be looking, probably, springtime, or it's actually not springtime, more, this time next year.
I was gonna say, when there's hopefully a drought going on.
That's right, when the water level is hopefully down, because we're not gonna have much snow this year, right?
Yeah,
Let's hope.
There we go.
And then Strasshire, they're involved in the other side of that culvert? Like if you, on the other side of the culvert, when you cross Hartford Ave,
Yes.
is that the condo that owns that, or is that the Crown and Eagle that owns that?
A little both. It's an odd situation, or at least looking at it without the benefit of knowing where property lines are, you wouldn't suspect that the common area of the Strathmoreshire condominium would extend all the way along Hartford Avenue over to Crown and Eagle Drive, but in fact it does. I'm not sure why it was done that way, but it was. That you can see that line that's just a few, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred feet north of the Crown and Eagle Mill and parallel to it. That separates the Uxbridge Housing Associates property from the Strathmoreshire condo. So part of the next, sort of phase of the residents' push and effort will be to make formal applications to secure, you know, the permits necessary to implement what they hope to be, you know, what they think is their ideal solution or the most practical solution, and also to make contact with those downstream landowners, because, you know, quite frankly, as I said at the Conservation Commission meeting last week, they may, we couldn't find any express water rights in those downstream landowners in any of the title research we did, which was extensive. But in my opinion, they may, as a matter of law, have some, you know, right to the continued flow of water in the channel. And I think this may have been one of the issues that caused the, you know, the town to decide that, you know, maybe it was better to just install a culvert. But part of our next phase of work is to work with and contact those landowners to seek some sort of a release of those water rights, so that, you know, the residents don't face the prospect of litigation at some point, or years down the road after implementing this solution. But I do, on behalf of the residents, want to thank, you know, the DPW director for his willingness to, you know, consider that we should work together, and to, you know, agree that in principle, that it's to the mutual benefit of the residents and the town to do so. There's a lot of work to do, but we think we have an idea for the best solution. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, you get the endorsed warrant for 2012 state primary.
I move that the board endorse the warrant for the 2012 state primary.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, appointments, CMRPC, one delegate and one alternate.
If it were me, I wouldn't even be part of that. It's a waste of money.
So you would like to be nominated? My hearing's
It's very subtle.
My hearing,
Yeah.
my hearing's good.
Are you currently the delegate member?
I am currently the delegate right now. I am. And I need to tell you that they have their meetings on, generally Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. And oftentimes it creates conflict with my travel schedule.
It's at Union Station too, right?
It's at Union Station, yeah.
Union Station.
So I'm not advocating that I am the best delegate for this board.
Any volunteers?
Is Joe not interested in continuing forward?
No, Joe Leonardo was appointed by the planning board as
As their
their delegate.
okay, so he will be back.
Yeah, and then they have also appointed Dan Antonellis as an alternate member. You need to reaffirm that alternate member. The Board of Selectmen are to appoint a delegate and an alternate, so if you choose to do so, you can appoint Dan as well. That would leave one selectman as a delegate.
No, I will continue to be the CMRPC representative, but knowing that, again, I couldn't fulfill it as well as I would have liked to last year. If no one else is interested,
You take it, and I'll be your alternate. Is that all right?
that's fine, yep.
All right. If nobody else wants it.
Don't everybody shout at once.
I got enough on my plate.
I went to one of their meetings and that was it.
I think it's hit or miss on the topic.
Hmm.
Okay.
So I'll move that
So we need a
the
motion,
board
yeah.
appoints Jay Cahill as a delegate member, to the CMRPC. Do that, you have any issue with that?
No?
Second?
Second?
And you're gonna be the alternate member?
Another motion.
That's another motion.
You do it in one
Made and
motion.
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright.
technically, Tim can show up as an alternate member in Jay's absent. He doesn't need a motion to, because they have already appointed Dan Antonellis as the planning board alternate member, or as an alternate member.
That's fine, yeah.
But I'm sure they would appreciate you
Yeah, if
in
you
your,
would.
in his absence,
Okay.
most definitely.
Better than nothing, you know?
Need that motion for
Like what he
Dan?
says.
Yes, yeah, to reaffirm Dan's.
I'll move that the board appoint Dan Antonellis of the planning board as alternate member to the CMRPC.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, application, one day beer and wine license, Rod and Gun Club, Knights of Columbus, St. Mary's Annual Parish Fair.
Are they all having it at the same place at the same time?
Knights of Columbus have it up there.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
okay.
use the Rod and Gun Club.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They moved it over there a couple of years ago. It's
They
the
do it
annual
for
barbecue.
St. Mary's,
Yep.
correct, yep.
Barbecue chicken dinner.
I move that the board approve one-day beer and wine license for the Knights of Columbus at the Uxbridge Rod and Gun Club for St. Mary's Annual Parish Fair, Sunday, September 16th, from 12 to 4 p.m.
Second.
Been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no public hearings, minute meetings, meeting minutes. 8:13:12.
8/13/12, there was a, item 9. Was our last meeting, right?
The ad hoc.
Solo. On item 9, we actually took a vote to approve the evaluation timeline from May 23rd through November 30th. So I would amend the minutes just to include it.
That's reflected in the minutes.
It is.
Yeah, that was sent to you prior to distribution.
Oh, so it's not on this print. I have an old one on the printout, that's fine. Great, perfect. And I'll move that we approve the meeting minutes from August 13th, 2012 at 6 PM as documented in the most recent distribution of.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes of 8:22:12.
Move that the board approve the meeting minutes from August 22nd, 2012.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Town manager update.
I've only got a few things. As most everyone knows, Chief Scott Freitas' last official day with the town was Friday, the 24th, at which time Lieutenant Peter Emmerich became our acting chief. He was sworn in on Thursday. What else? As I mentioned at our last meeting, the RFP for Blanchard School opened up. We did have the site visit on August 21st. We had one party show, so that's open until the 20th of September.
Did they express an interest? I mean, do you have any sense of,
Yes, it was a group that had expressed interest before, so,
okay. A group that wants to buy it, or,
yes.
okay.
Swimming lessons at Powell Pond, the second round concluded 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. They had about 54 kids, so it looks like the swimming lessons, they started off a little bumpily, if you'll allow me to invent a word, and finished up really strongly, so that bodes well for next year, I think. Once we, if we enter the planning process a little bit sooner than we did this year, we probably should not encounter those.
How's the weed issue this
I'm
summer?
sorry?
Fine.
Is it good?
There's no weeds, and of course, all the water testing levels have all come back well below limits, so. What else? Town hall renovation, as you can see, is moving along. We're sort of in the final stages here. They're down to painting the woodwork. As you might have noticed now on the roof over the stairs to enter the building, there's no longer a tree growing out of that
What was
roof.
that, Christmas tree?
That's been replaced. They put pavers, large paver stones up there, so when the icicles fall from the roof, in the event we can't get the heat situation fixed, Peter, then we won't have damage to the roof. So there, today he was up painting the fascia at the very top of the building. Once the fascia at the top is painted, then the woodwork around the three large windows up on the second floor will be painted, and then I think that's pretty much it for this building. After that, we anticipate Build Max's, they've got a small job over at the library, and then we're gonna put them on the, I believe they're gonna take care of the roof leak at Blanchard for us.
From what I can see, they're doing a good job.
They are.
Yeah, looks good.
They're not breaking any speed records, but they are doing a very good job.
You know, government work, what do you want?
Slow but sure.
The fire call boxes, the removal of the fire call boxes project is in its planning stages now for the removal. Chief Kessler has been in contact with any local businesses who might be affected, as well as town buildings. We realized that there was a couple of town buildings, possibly the library, we're not sure, definitely DPW, not the senior center, because this will remove the notification system. There's gonna be a couple of town buildings that are gonna have to actually install some sort of security system that's gonna allow for an emergency notification. The plan is, once we tear down all the boxes and all the wires, that stuff's gonna get sold on eBay or for scrap or whatever, and so whatever monies we end up with are initially going to be used to offset the expenses that any town agencies might have to comply with the necessary fire
And what are the plans
notification
for?
process. I'm sorry?
What are we planning to replace the existing alarm systems with?
Well, we're just replacing those red call boxes. We're not replacing them. Most all businesses are already wired. They already have their own notification systems.
Okay, but how about other town buildings?
It would
Aren't
just be
the town-
installation of a security system
Okay, but going where?
with notification to fire. And I'm not sure if it's total public, it's to central dispatch.
They're not gonna
which
be
takes
on
care of
Vonage, are they? They're not gonna be on Vonage, are they, in case we
Well-
get a storm and we lose?
As far as I know, it's a wired system.
Oh,
so-
good.
Are they, when you say wired system, now currently, we have actual copper wires that terminate in the fire department.
Right.
Both of these various things in
Those
the
are gonna be
buildings.
removed,
They're
correct.
gonna be removed
Yes.
and replaced with what?
With whatever security system or whatever fire notification system the particular department elects to go with.
So we're gonna have every different department choose their own?
No, most of the buildings already have it. We're talking a couple buildings. We're talking
Okay.
DPW, possibly the library. I think the library may actually have its own system already. So it's just, like the senior center already has its own system. Town hall does as well. So,
With the town hall system is that firebox makes a telephone call
right.
to the answering center is in Lowell, Massachusetts. So if anything happens in the telephone lines between here and Lowell, there's no notification.
Right, there'll be a system installed in town hall and at DPW that will allow for our dispatch to get fire notices.
There's no way you can go wireless, something like that?
It depends on what we decide to do. I have a security system at my home that operates via cellular technology. But I'm not sure, it's just gonna depend on what we end up.
See what happens.
We haven't, there are a few different systems that the fire chief can recommend, but I mean, nothing has been put into place yet, so I'm not, we are still some time away from that, so I'd be lying if I said I knew. I'm not 100% conversant in what's actually gonna go in yet, because I don't think anybody knows.
Wouldn't it make sense if the different town departments had a common system so that?
It's possible, but it may not be financially feasible. Certainly, I'm gonna keep things as common as they are, but unfortunately, the way it is now, the library has its own system, whatever, farmhouse has its own alarm system, the senior center has its own.
There have been occasions when I was off the board for 2 years, and I got a telephone call from custom alarm from the person in Lowell someplace, telling me that there's a fire alarm in the town hall. And I said, why are you calling me? Because, you know,
They go down a list.
yeah.
Right.
And I want to remind members of the board that when we moved the dispatch from the fire department next door to the new police station, we paid $25,000 to run a wire from all the alarms from the fire station to the police station. So when a fire alarm came in, it would automatically go by dedicated wire to the police station. And so far as I know, that system has never been used. We paid $25,000 to install the wiring, but it's never been used. And we could easily have hooked up all, you know, the town hall and things just don't get done.
I can't speak to
No,
that.
I know you
Sorry.
can't. I know you can't, but,
The work over at 36 South Main is progressing. The remediation, as far as we know, has been done. We're waiting for the testing results from Rhode Island Analytical to come back to make sure that we remediated all the hazardous waste. The DPW filed a notice of intent with conservation last week, but due to a scheduling conflict, it wasn't heard but at the last, or it cannot be heard at the next conservation meeting, but we're trying to work out a special conservation meeting, so we're hoping that the Concom can hear this on the 10th of September, and if everything goes well, then we can begin the demolition of the building as early as the 11th.
do we have a bid for that?
I'm sorry?
Do we have a bid for that?
The demolition, yes.
Okay.
The only thing we're really not in a rush, we are in a rush to do this, but the reason why this time schedule seems so sensitive now is because once the building is down, the plan is to put the parking lot there,
Yeah.
and in order for us to,
Before the
that
asphalt
hasn't been
plant's
bid
closed.
yet, right, the parking lot job has not been bid yet.
Okay.
That will add time and before the asphalt closes, we'd like to get it done this year. This
Wouldn't
little
be the
event
end
here
of the
set us
world
back a
if
couple of
It
weeks.
was a gravel lot for over the winter, because that would allow it to pack better, and you would have less settling of the.
Which may ultimately happen.
Okay.
But what else? Just a couple of reminders, I guess everybody needs to remember, school starts on Wednesday, so, you know, there's already a few kids, you're gonna see kids out in buses, especially if you're going down Quaker Highway, nobody's used to that high school yet, but you need to slow down.
I've seen kids
So
walking
just,
around.
it's the normal September, whatever, just be careful out there. I need to echo Mr. Ramasco's sentiments that the public take advantage of it, or the public attempt to attend the public hearing of the Charter Review Committee. This document affects every single person in this town, and this committee has been working for 18 months. And at every single meeting, the public has been asked to participate. And as Mr. Ramasco mentioned, there has been limited public participation. So if in fact you care about what goes on in your town and the way your town is governed, this is the time for you to come down and speak. And if you can't make it there, send an email, send it to my office, I'll make sure the committee gets it. This document is gonna, again, last this town for another 10 years. So, just, whatever, I find, I'm in a position of hearing a lot of complaints and negative comments. And I always tend to have a little more sympathy for the complaints and the comments or negative comments from someone who has participated in the process. I think that you have a little more, a stronger foundation on which to stand when you complain about things in your town, if at least you took part in, you know, voting a particular person or a particular document in or out of use. So I urge people to take part in it.
This
because
board
it's-
is affected more by the charter than, you know, most places. And there are a lot of changes affecting the board. So I would urge that the board have a meeting just on that, so we can make sure that we all understand the ramifications for our work.
Most of those changes took place 12 years ago. They already took place. I mean, in terms of changing the government of the town.
Now, I'm not talking about that change. I'm talking about the changes that they're proposing here. And sometimes people really don't appreciate the ramifications of something until after, because they just look at the words. Gee, those are nice words. And without thinking, gee, now, okay, now, what do these words mean as far as what I can do and what I cannot do? And that's what happens.
8 people have been entrusted over the last 18 months to coordinate this effort, and as, you know, as we heard, some folks have been more diligent about attending the meetings than others, but, you know, this document certainly affects more than the 8 people. And this committee is clearly has made its desire for public buy-in clear. So I urge the public to take the committee at its word. And my last reminder, I guess we need to remember that the warrant for the fall town meeting closes Friday, September 21st. That's a Friday, so town hall will be open 8 to 5 on that day. And you'll come up here to see me or Tracy, probably me. 9:21. Any questions from you gentlemen?
Did you appoint a acting lieutenant?
No, that's not going to happen right now.
Right now? Not gonna happen right now?
There are no plans.
Tomorrow?
There are no plans. No, sir, there are no plans at this time. There are plans, but there are no plans to appoint an interim lieutenant. Let me be clear.
Okay. Any issues? Want to talk about that evaluation?
Yeah, I can just talk about it in evaluations quickly. Thank you for everyone's comments regarding the town manager eval. Essentially, what I've done is combined the feedback into a single document, which I failed to print out and bring with me tonight, but I will distribute electronically. I think to summarize the comments and the feedback, they vary from, you know, grammatical to clarity questions around the criteria on the form, to, I think, Peter and I had a good conversation about how effective this form is actually gonna be in the overall evaluation process. I think, in summary, what I'll say is that, I think moving to a sooner than later review process is gonna be something that which we agreed to do last meeting, is something that we should certainly get some benefit from, and Sean should be able to get some feedback out of whether the qualifying questions in the form are gonna be spot on is gonna be a little hard until we actually go through and give it some practice on it. So with that in mind, I would like to make the recommendation to the board that the version that I'll distribute out, that we move forward with through this, being well aware that, you know, it doesn't necessarily have everyone's full support at this point, but I think it'll be a chance to kind of work through the process and revise as we get into the evaluation, which will all be part of, again, starting in December and the next period we define.
You would ask me to have comments.
Yeah, and I wanted to
Yes.
get, yeah.
I just, you know, I think the form would be tedious quarterly. I find it valuable for an annual filing review, but I think that, and I think most people sort of agree, this would be very time-consuming to go through sort of this entire form.
It's no problem at all,
Quarterly
Sean. If we can do
basis.
that for you, we'd love to.
I think the idea of a quarterly evaluation or touch base or whatever you call it is a good idea, because it allows for the establishment of goals and progress reports and that kind of thing, but I'm not sure that, again, quarterly is a good time to,
whip this whole thing out.
a comprehensive evaluation isn't necessarily.
And where we are with this one is more of a 6-month, half-year, and like I said, it may be, I'm cognizant of it, it may be overkill with the amount of questions, but I'd like to at least, you know, give it a go, and I think when we we call together the responses, we're gonna find out things that we didn't know, we couldn't know, and things that we just, you know, we might be too aggressive on and trying to find out.
Just sticking with the charter isn't enough. I think some of those sentiments expressed in the charter are hard to quantify. And there's a lot more, that's one thing I do like about the detail of the rubric, is it does touch on aspects of the job that people don't necessarily know about, that's not in the charter, that no one would ever necessarily know about. The problem is, it does take some work on the part of the board. You do need to, in order to give a legitimate, put a legitimate number, the board needs to consult with department heads and people that the town manager works with. And again, if an individual board member of the board isn't inclined to put in that time, you're gonna get what we talked about 2 weeks ago. You're gonna get, well, it wasn't bad, so we'll just give them a 3, put it in the middle.
Right.
Which, you know, invalidates the process. Doesn't invalidate it, but it certainly doesn't,
No, but if the output of it becomes, you know, on one of these forums, we cultivate a good and constructive conversation, then the ones that didn't make it will know better next time to at least know what the level of effort would be behind it. Maybe we assign that to the chair or the vice chair to pursue solo, as opposed to asking the whole board to do it, or whoever might be qualified. So it's gonna be a learning process, I think, in the end, but I'd like to encourage us to at least try to go through the process once, and then, I know this isn't the first rodeo for a lot of you on this, but
Yeah.
so that's,
Use this on a 6-month, and then what do we do on a quarterly?
well, I think that's, once we get to,
After the 6-month, then we'll go look at it again.
let's talk about this as we kinda go and start doing this in December, because then we're gonna set the timeline for the next quarterly, which will probably end up in March, and figure out what really didn't work, and whether the whole thing is just overkill for the quarterly or not. You know, and it's gonna be valuable to get Sean's input of what you felt was lacking in the review itself when we go through it, and how we better might get that information.
just if I could ask the board, I did have a couple of points on my, I don't wanna call it a contract renegotiation, but there were a couple of points on my contract that I might want to revisit, so that, in the contract, it calls for a 2-month sort of notice, no less than 2 months, so I'm just wondering, do you want a notice of, you know, my intent, or my specific, the 2 specific issues that I have, 2 months ahead of time, or do you want it during the review process? How do you want to handle it? I'm giving you sort of informal notice.
The more time anyone has for something, the better it is, right?
Isn't that 2
But
months
sometimes
at
you
the
give it
end
too
of the
far
year?
out in advance, and then it gets lost in the shuffle, and then town meeting comes, and then Christmas comes, and, you know,
Right.
that's why I'm asking.
I like it sooner than later.
Okay.
The quarterly.
If I'm gonna be shot, tell me as soon as you.
That's
know.
right.
Don't wait till the last minute.
Yeah, I would
If you
engage
forget, I'll remind you.
with at least the chair on some of those things, we can decide when the right time is.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just
Probably
submit
the
it to
first of the
you, and
year,
then you
yeah.
can, okay.
The other thing we talked about, and this goes back, Peter and I met last week, and subsequently Peter and I met last week, about the financial budget review and planning, and we're trying to get some thoughts together around, how do we get the ball rolling as we come into the fall, and get into, looking at next year. And one of the suggestions, and I think it's a good one, is kind of assessing the departments, from a standpoint of, you know, what are we kind of currently doing in the departments today? What do we have to do? And, you know, what are the things that are not mandated by Mass General Law, but something that is either optionally picked up by the town or via bylaw or local kind of policy. So Pete Petrillo and I were talking and suggested that, you know, getting that formula down for how we go through and look at different departments and different, as it relates to the budgeting exercise, and getting input as to what the functions of those groups are, is gonna be an evolving process, and we might be best served to try to start by looking at our own budget in here and going through that exercise, and then getting a list of other areas to kind of chip away. this is the conversation between, you know, Pete and I, based on an original conversation between Peter and I just want to kind of bring that up on the table and I haven't had a chance to talk to you, Tim, about it, or Bruce, you, and, you know, kind of get an open dialogue to say, all right, if our intention is to review this, how do we get going? And get involved in this process like we haven't before.
Well, I'm gonna start looking at the contracts, all the union contracts. That's a financial impact on the town. And, anything I dig up, I'm gonna share with all of us.
We have, right, the spreadsheet for all our union contracts now, up to date. Dave's been maintaining that, so we should be able to get you that in a quick and easy way.
That include their past practices and everything that's,
What do you mean by practices?
well, you know, the standard jobs that they get as, details. It used to be fire E&Ts involved with details, but I guess they've stopped that. It's just all police.
Oh, I didn't know that they stopped.
You know, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, the spreadsheet isn't, but I mean, all the contracts are here. You can come in and look at them and go back as far as you want, I guess, to the original, you know, contract. Some of them are just MOUs, memorandums of agreement, what understanding attached to a contract. Most of them are updated so that the full contract is actually
We
there
did
in its language,
memorandums
so.
of understanding for quite a while.
What's that?
I said we did the memorandums of understanding for quite a while.
That's just because no one wants to go through the work to
Go through the
incorporate
work
the,
of it, right.
yeah, the new.
And in
to
the meantime, we're up to here with,
Right.
yeah.
But yeah, I've got them all in here anytime.
And that spreadsheet's nice because it compares fire, police to, it kind of just gives you a quick snapshot of what's the term, what are the key elements, and what was settled on the negotiation, so. Probably a good starting point.
It used to be, but he tried to make it fairly standard across
Yeah.
different agencies.
And we're in that track again.
Yep.
I hope so. It's, my years in feds, and I'm sure yourself, everybody got the same pay raise. If you got 2%, you were pretty lucky. And the other thing that you had annually is to decide which insurance company you wanted. That's all you had to do and that was it. You get 2% was determined by general accountant office, which would be equivalent to the finance committee. And insurance was your choice. Outside of that, everybody got the same thing. Except the guys that carry the guns, they get a little bit more.
And the teachers.
But is that a reasonable approach, I guess, to getting into this? Let's look at a department, you know, pick your favorite one. We just figured we're gonna work out the kinks within our own and make sure we're not wasting people's time by, you know, maybe going through a couple of the smaller ones that we have oversight over, so we can get our questions down and kind of put the structure. Because I think this could be a very time-consuming exercise, if we don't manage it properly and respect people's time.
And I agree with that. The thing I don't want to see is the way things used to be, pitting departments against departments. I mean, they already have to go in front of finance committee and through you guys and argue. I don't want to see that again because I don't think it doesn't lead to all these departments, you know, working together well. It becomes more personal, you know what I'm saying? So that's the only thing I would say. I would hate to see that, you see it sort of devolving into that where, I'm holding
I'm
her
trying to
away,
get my
exactly.
chassis.
Right, at the expense of something else, because I think one thing that we've gotten is that we've got a pretty good team, and I think that's important. And the fact that the fire department does have sensitivity to the needs of the senior center and the library and vice versa. And to ruin that, to destroy that would be a shame, so.
And remember, town meeting authorizes the expenditure of money. It doesn't require this expenditure of money.
Right.
So, keep that in mind. There've been occasions where something passed at town meeting, and through the year, the board said, no, we're gonna reduce your budget. Don't spend this amount of money.
So, like I said, I'm looking for someone else on the board to say, yeah, we've done this way before and it works, or to say, no, we should.
That's something that we've worked with in other towns.
Yeah, or
That work,
anything,
like in
I don't have a ton
code
of experience in
enforcement.
this particular.
You know, it could be handled in one department, and each one has their own inspector on a per diem basis. And it's just about what we do now, it's just it would be a little bit refined. If there was a
What's your end game?
reduced
That's
cost.
gonna give you, what's the result? What are you coming away with?
When you submit, I assume when you submit your budget, to the finance committee for approval, there's a step within the charter that asks for feedback from the board of selectmen.
Right.
I think at least what my personal goal would be, is to be able to articulate what I believe to be positive or constructive feedback, rather, onto what you're presenting as a budget to the finance committee, so you can go in and either use that or choose not to when you do it. I'm speaking for one
Right,
select.
I'm just saying, I would, it's gonna help me if you give me your priorities, your things, before I set the budget.
Sure. That's exactly
Because if it's
right.
coming
Otherwise,
after
it's
the
too late.
fact, then it's sort of, then now we've created a lot of work. You guys went to a lot of work, I went to a lot of, now we gotta go through more work. I think it's most effectively done sooner than later, because if I can take your recommendations, your priorities into account into that planning process, that just makes a lot of, that's what I was getting at, Jay, is just sort of like, to come to me afterwards, whatever, it's collaboration, it's good, we're working together, but it's, frustratingly late at that point or whatever. I think it's certainly gonna make my job easier if I know, what you all are looking for, what going into the
Go back
process.
a couple of years, it was before this time that I said, we need to get working on the budget for next year. Oh, yeah, there's 28, oh, yeah, we'll do it. And it was, I think, middle of December. And Beth said, okay, we'll put it on the next agenda, but it wasn't the next, it was 3 agendas after that. And then David said, well, it's kind of late now. You're right, it is too late now, okay. And that's what happens.
Right. So how do we best engage in the planning process then, to that point? I think this is where I sit here and I'm stumped by, everyone agrees, and everyone will say, yeah, we should be involved, but no one knows how to get involved.
I think it's tough. I don't know, one of your questions was, is there some doubt as to what the individual departments actually do? They don't do a lot of extra. There's no people, there's no time to do
Well, I think
things that
there-
we don't have to do. Not many, maybe a detailed look at this, we'll find a couple of practices here or there, but is there really a doubt as to what each department does?
I think, Peter, I don't
Or
want
is
to
supposed
speak
to
on
do
behalf of you,
this.
because I think these are your words. There's things we must do, and there's things
Yeah,
that,
that's correct. There are things that we are required to do
Right, required.
by law. And what we need to do is, are we doing them as efficiently as we can? And what does it cost to do those things? Now, every department does things that are not required to do, but they have decided for various reasons to do it. So I wanna know, okay, what are those things? What do they cost? What's the benefit? Years ago, I don't know if we still have it, but we had mountain police. That was the grades that go through the town, mountain police. So we have to have mountain police, which means we have to buy mountain bikes. And then we sent cops to special mountain bike training school. Now, do we know what that cost? What was the benefit? And so you go through the line. Library. The library doesn't have to provide DVDs of movies. They do. It's nice for me. My wife would go in and pick 4 or 5 DVDs, and maybe of the 5, 1 is playable, the others skip and they don't work and so forth. But that's not something the library has to do. So if I want to watch a movie and I'm not willing to pay $1, by what right do I ask other people to pay the $1 who don't use the library? everything we do costs money. All of the money comes from taxpayers.
So should we only do that which we absolutely have to do?
Well.
I know
we
that's
have-
your philosophy.
We have to know what we have to do.
Okay.
We have to know what we're doing that we don't have to do, and we have to say, what's the benefit? Now, my basic calculation is, if I am not willing to pay $1 to watch a movie, by what right do I use the power of government to take money from other people? Because if everybody watched the movie, there would be no benefit to have the government doing it.
Right.
Because the government would have to take more money than it spends for the movie.
So how do we accomplish,
It's not hard, none of this
No, no,
is difficult.
but how do
have
we
to those
accomplish-
things. We need the
Each-
information.
that's what I'm saying, so how do we, that's what I'm asking. How do we
Okay.
accomplish you telling the board, without having a department head stand up here in front of the Board of Selectmen on a Monday night?
Which is not a good solution.
Well, I don't mind the department head standing up there. on
But the
Monday
best
night.
way to get the information certainly is from
You
the
get
department heads,
you
but
get
maybe
the
in an informal
information
setting.
Not on a, standing up there Monday night. You get the information in advance. And then you make some judgments.
So do you want a written report from each department? I mean, I assumed you wanted to, that's what I was assuming here, is that you wanted some sort of actual face-to-face meeting. I mean,
Make
I mean,
no
I can
ass-
facilitate this if you want
No
me to
assumption, make
get
no
this sort of-
assumption that
well, that's why I'm asking.
this is the complete, the area where I struggle with how do you get
I
started.
haven't seen it recently, but before, we would get monthly reports from the different departments, library, senior center, police department, so forth. And there was a lot of information in those reports. And I remember the library, there's a report saying, and she said that 50% of the people in Uxbridge use the library. Good. But that means half of the people who pay taxes aren't using it. I just register that in my brain, that's all, just information. So half are getting something that they want, because half who don't want are paying for it. So I want this.
That's a
and I
dangerous
give
road to go
fresh.
down. You're talking the library, the senior
I
center.
don't, listen,
I'm just saying, that when you, fire department.
yeah, that's no problem.
I don't like paying for my fire department. I don't have any fires in my town,
Down south,
in my
they-
house.
I'm not,
I
no,
don't,
no,
fire
no,
tax, they
no,
don't
no.
put the fire
No,
on.
no. That's a generalization, and it serves no purpose. I may not have a fire in my house, but I can appreciate, everybody appreciates the value of having a fire department that can respond quickly in the case I do have a fire in my house.
Insurance.
I'm not dying right now, but I have life insurance. Why? Because at some point, I'm going to die, which is no problem, but if I die prematurely, that's a problem.
but that's that subjective judgment that, again,
Everything-
public safety is more important than cultural pursuits, like the library or the senior
All right?
center.
All right?
That's,
fine.
that's dangerous. I mean, we're putting
I don't
ourselves in a
mind-
position of.
We'll let the user pay.
I'm not afraid, of dangerous, we can't discuss it? No. I discuss dangerous things all the time. That's what people do. We all do. We don't spend $50,000 to buy the safest car, do we? We buy what we think is adequate for our perception of our use and benefit. There's no magic. We don't do brain surgery here. We do very simple things, but all we have to do is carefully think about what it is we're doing and why. Monies are not unlimited, so we have budgets to work with. We don't give Department A the best of everything and Department B nothing. We make balances. That's what managers do. Am I wrong?
You're right.
Okay,
So-
and that's all I'm suggesting.
So do you want me to get my department heads to submit some kind of detailed report providing, outlining services provided by that particular department, and then try and categorize them in terms of, statutorily required and local?
Well,
Will that help?
that's
I
not
don't-
difficult to do.
I'm not saying it is. I'm
Okay.
asking you, I'm trying to help.
Well, I should think that as a manager, if you're gonna manage these departments, forgetting the Board of Selectmen, you need to acquire over time, not today, but a good working knowledge of what every department does, what they're required to do, what they do by custom or old time or just for the heck of it, you know, and what all those things cost.
And I do. I think
Okay.
I am in the process of
Good.
developing that.
Okay,
But I certainly wouldn't I wouldn't presume to sit and write a list down as far as what the town clerk does. I'd rather have her do it.
yeah, fine,
Right.
that's
That's all.
fine. And I presume you got it originally, you got your knowledge from the town clerk.
Exactly.
Keeping in mind, now, in my early life as a broadcast engineer, I had a manager who had to approve my budget. And if I wanted something, really wanted it, but wasn't really necessary, I could fool the manager because he didn't have the knowledge that I did. If I said, gee, this is required to meet the FCC requirement 82-15.
So you would lie.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Does that surprise anybody?
All right, so to facilitate your process, the board's process here, I'll make that happen. That will,
I think it's a starting point, right? Our problem is we've never been able to leave the gate since I've been on the board. And if this is the, one of those.
That's why you have to know what everyone's doing.
but I just think delivery is important here. I don't want the departments to be made to feel as though they're fighting for their lives, or,
That's right. That's a good point.
I don't. I want it to be productive, not, I want it to be constructive and productive, not destructive, because again, the delivery is everything, because if,
Departments
They
are
want-
used
they
to
need-
making the case for what they want.
Right.
And they've been doing that for years.
but I want them to make it proactively, not in a defensive stance, because that leads to lies.
Right.
That leads to protecting it, that leads to hoarding and
You
stuff.
have those anyway. You have those, listen,
It creates,
you are
it creates a more
naive
competitive
indeed.
environment, and that's all I
You
would say.
think every time somebody says, oh, we're required to do this, that they're telling the truth, because I can tell you, 50% of the time, they're not really required to do it. So, you know, that's lesson number one. I mean, every department they want things.
Ask my department heads, anytime someone said, I have to have this, I've always asked, prove it, show me, where? What is it, where does it say that?
You have it, good.
I do.
It'd be nice to ask,
Okay,
when they say, we don't have to do that, prove it.
We don't have to do it.
Right. Because when people call up and looking for assistance and they don't get it, you might want to know why they feel as though they don't have to respond.
And I think the concern, right, is the initial reaction we asked with is everyone's gonna think everything's on the chopping block in every service. And I don't know that that's the exercise we're trying to do, is cut costs right now as much as understand where the cost is going and where are the opportunities for efficiency, which, you know, and you should be able to see them and recognize them, but wouldn't you?
Well, if that's what I'm saying, if I know that and I get that spirit from the board, I can convey that to the department heads.
Right.
But that's why I need to be involved, that's when, a few weeks ago I said I need to be involved in the process, because coming from you, everybody goes into back against the wall, defensive mode. Rightly or wrongly, it's automatically assumed like, oh, it's the chopping block. But I do perceive this as something that can be helpful, because,
But if they don't want the selectmen's input into to the town manager in the process of the budget, they should come to the charter meeting next week.
Right.
And eliminate the powers of the selectmen to be involved with that.
But keep in mind, it is the chopping block in a sense, because we all know that we are not maintaining our roads and other infrastructure. And to the extent we're spending money on something else, you see, that's the biggest problem the board has, any board, I don't care where it is. We're focused on the person who's standing up here and wanting something. And it's just human nature. Gee, I can understand you want, oh yes, we should do that. But the person who isn't here isn't accounted for, you see? And to that extent, we have an obligation to, maintenance is a real cost. And to the extent you don't maintain something, you've just deferred that cost. So the next year, you have the cost you deferred from the year before, plus this year's cost that you haven't met. And that's a very dangerous situation to be in.
Okay.
me just make a statement? Just a short one, it won't be long. I've been getting some questions about the amount of parking down here in front of the businesses, the Uxbridge House of Pizza, the restaurant, and whatnot, and the difficulty of their customers being able to find a place to park. And as Peter has mentioned before, you go through the center of town of some towns and you see the buildings all empty. You know, so if we wanna keep these businesses going, they've gotta get some sort of cooperation for parking space. You know, you get tattooed 122 there with 2 cars on the road, each facing away, so that when you're coming into town, you're seeing their ad. They got a business there, go park up behind the building. But anyways, I was down to Hyannis this week, and they have this parking meter, which is solar, run by solar electricity. And you just put your credit card in, and then you take the sticker and you put it on your windshield, and you're all set. The cop goes by, hopefully notices that there's a sticker on the car or not on the car, and the car is parked. Then you get out and give them a ticket. But we don't handle too much, it's all credit card, or I guess there's some points you can put in some coins. But I thought it was very effective.
Well, we don't charge for parking. I mean, there is a huge parking lot in Savers. I mean, it's a
I
big
know,
parking
but
lot.
we can't tell them to go there.
I don't know that we can tell them to
When
get
they've
off
been
the
asked,
street either. I can
well,
sure ask them,
go
but I
there.
don't
They
think they can
say-
tell me to go pound sand.
This is public parking, I'll park any place I want. So, you have to give them a little encouragement.
You have any
wanna
friends with
park
Louis
there?
DeRusso? Get him to open up his parking lot.
Well,
Just something for you to mull over, please,
Okay.
that's all.
if you notice, there are lots of restaurants and things in town, right, Main Street here. And most of the rental space is full. Go to Northbridge, where they've been revitalized, and what you see are empty buildings. Go to Rockdale, that's been revitalized, what you see are empty buildings. Go to Milford, which has been revitalized, and you see empty buildings. Now, businesses that locate here know what the parking situation is. And we can't invent it, we can't just, materialize it. But somehow they're able to survive by virtue of the fact that they
Right.
stay, or if they go out of business. it's
You
not-
like to see them get a little bit ahead too, because they do put a lot of time into their work,
Oh, sure they do,
Right.
but that's,
but not to get them just get by.
get by on it, they don't move on their own accord.
No, they run out of money, because
Well-
nobody came in.
Well, then
That's
they
all I'm
chose
saying
the
is-
wrong
is-
I can keep an eye on cars on there. Say certainly tattoo 122, I can ask them not to park in front of their place.
Yeah. They can say the same thing, they'll do it for 2 days, and,
I urge town employees not to park on the street, they're also
Yeah.
supposed to park elsewhere, so.
We're all parked on the street right now.
yeah, you see, that was the
I'm
other.
gonna
that
write you a
was-
ticket.
I know, that was.
Where did you park, Mr. Rice?
On the street,
Did
though,
you?
I can walk now. The thing is that it's a 24-hour parking meter too, 7 days a week. It doesn't stop at 6 p.m.
How's that grind you?
Charge for parking?
As Sean said, the safest parking lot, there's a lot of spaces.
Oh, yeah.
Costs us $60 an hour to enforce
People
it
walk a block. So what are you gonna
for
do?
12
Do you
spots.
think we have the right to send cars up to Savers without the permission?
Oh, wait a minute.
Down the
Some of that property is owned by the town. You know that, right?
I don't.
Okay,
I
you
didn't
do.
realize that either, I thought it was.
So it's what, the Savers?
Some of that parking lot.
Oh, that parking lot, I thought you meant the
some of
street.
it is
Oh, okay.
owned by the town,
Right.
yes.
That left side of it,
Yes.
Yeah.
We
You
had,
know,
it was
on
a
park there,
100
just say
year
free parking
lease
up there and there.
to, somebody, where the,
Franklin's
furniture
was.
store.
Yeah, I think where the Five and Dime was. and
Yeah,
Me and tore it down,
yeah.
midnight.
No,
But when they-
that was
Oh, that was,
the building.
that's
That
right.
wasn't, it was.
Starcase
the-
Video?
The Sundin Furniture.
Oh, okay, it used to be Ham Levin.
That, yeah, Ham Levin's house, that was, but that's town property. So that, in effect, is a town parking lot.
A motion to adjourn and enter an executive session.
Second.
Discuss.
Wait a minute, just two
Oh,
very
good.
quick things. When we open our meeting, it's our custom to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And the noticed that when we went to the school, they did it too, the building committee, and the school committee does. The beginning is awful. The most important word in the Pledge of Allegiance is the first word, I. And if you don't say I, it has no meaning. And I is never said, and there's a reason for it. The chairman says, I invite everyone to join the Pledge of Allegiance, and then you stand up and turn around. And you wait.
I say aye.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
I say aye.
You tell me
Let's go
what
to
I
the-
say?
I've always said
Anyway,
aye. Let's go to
Now
the
you tell me
one
what I
knows-
say.
No one knows when you're gonna start. So, no, be serious. It's very simple. When you say, please join me, Pledge of Allegiance, it announce that as soon as you turn around, and you wait for a second, people stand, then as soon as you turn around, we all say aye. Because if you say aye, you're the only one. So no one else says the pledge. Because, no, watch the tape.
Okay, I
Watch
got that
the
written.
tape.
Next. What's your other one?
I know, I say aye.
You said you had two things.
Oh, we have 450 acres of land zoned industrial. It's vacant. And this is, Uxbridge is a prime location for industry. Yet we have 450 acres vacant. We also have industrially zoned land that has a building, or sometimes big buildings on it, but the buildings are vacant. And it's not going to change until we get a handle on our zoning bylaws. And I've said that 100 times, and I'll say it 100 times again. We're spending a lot of time on this charter review, and I've read the thing backwards and forwards, and there isn't a dime's worth of change there of any benefit. But we're going through the process. But here's something that the board needs to address. And it's a shame that we just won't do it. That's all.
Okay.
Motion and a second.
Motion is second to go into executive session.
No business afterward?
No business to follow. Roll call.
Executive session for the purpose of a fire